Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. You know very well about Unacademy. This is India's largest and the best online education platform. Yes, what are all the benefits you are likely to get once you enroll yourself in Unacademy? Ladies and gentlemen, if that's going to be your question, excuse me. If that's going to be your question, yes, you got daily live classes, and you got you can chat with your educator, and you can engage in all round productive discussions, and you can also ask all your genuine doubts and participate in the answer polls. All these things you can do when the sessions going on. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, you got structured courses here, which is completely based on UPSC civil service examination pattern and syllabus as well, so that we ensure you never get deviated from the expected framework. You are set on track. We save your time and energy. Not only that, one particular point we are keep on emphasizing, ladies and gentlemen, it's not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because delivery matters. Yes, for that we have got a mechanism to evaluate your preparation in terms of various levels with our regular mock tests and quiz programs, and you get a detailed analysis based on your performance. You come to know where you are strong, where you are weak, and the time you have consumed in solving a particular question. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, you got unlimited access, more than 1 million videos in your access. Whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is mobile phone, laptop, desktop. Ladies and gentlemen, that you can learn from anywhere, anytime, irrespective of your electronic device. So that's the motto. What you have to do, please download Unacademy learning app immediately, right? Whether it is Android or iOS, ladies and gentlemen, once you download, of course, you are ready to access all those benefits, right? Who is this Success Sampath? Of course, that I'm from Chennai with unique experience of, got exposed to the fields of, engineering, management, and legal education. With 25 years of experience in the field of coaching, especially shaping the careers of civil service aspirants. With my humble team, I could witness the humble results. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, 250 plus results. All my kids are working in different parts of India as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, and some of them in abroad as well. Part of Union External Affairs Ministry, you might be aware. And you can also parallelly ask me, what's your vision, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, if that's going to be your, the question, yes, we are going to be part of solution. We want to be part of solution by simplifying the complexity. And to begin with, of course, that to embrace, that especially the Indian youths, that by providing them career solution, let it to embrace the global community. Fortunately, this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with Unacademy's vision. We are working together to shape you so that you realize your dream, goal. It's ultimately, that we are building communities, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you can also reach me through Telegram channel, say Unacademy_Sampath. Or you can also watch a lot of videos. My videos are already part of Unacademy. Yes, whether it is optional subject sociology, or that the ethics and integrity part of your general studies, even essay paper, and even international relations, and even at the very the very app we are asking you to download, the platform itself, you've got variety of videos. The last 5 years of the questions, MCQs, when it comes to prelims, we have solved. And some of the questions came already, in the recent prelims also. We get fantastic feedback about it, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you all for that particular wonderful feedback, ladies and gentlemen. So that encouraged us, that we started providing the discussions based on previous year questions when it comes to mains, that cutting across various segments of GS, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, even in optional, we discuss questions. Yes, you can also reach me through that using my ID, say Success Sampath or Sampath Iruvengidam. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. And not only that, you can also reach me through social network to benefit more. Yes. When I say, that Success Sampath, part of Unacademy, it's not only me alone. You might be already aware. More than, 100 plus we top educators of India with subject matter expertise, with around, almost 20 to 25 years of experience in the chosen subject. Ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting to shape you, support you, so that you realize your dream, goal. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, for example, we've got more than, 15,000 courses, subject-specific module, duration-specific module. Choose what suits you. Depending upon your time availability and budget, you can choose programs here. You know that we understand great things will take time. There is no leadership without passions. There is no leadership without passion. There is no leadership, that otherwise without consistency, that are even persistence. There is no leadership without focus also. Ladies and gentlemen, it is empire building process. Once you become officer as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to be part of the steel pillars of the nation or Indian administration for the next 25 to 30 years of wonderful career. That demands your minimum 2 years of devotion. When that's the scenario, ladies and gentlemen, we expect, that you to devote, towards either, at least, that the 2 years program. For that, we have devised under UPSC Civil Service Examination two major programs. Say Plus program, another one is Iconic program. What is Plus program? Yes, here too you've got, live classes, test series, unlimited practice session, structured schedule mechanisms. Ladies and gentlemen, starting from 1 month to maximum 36 months, that for which you got program. You can ask me why 36 months, 3 years. Yes, there are college going aspirants, work going aspirants, and given that less time availability, you can plan accordingly. Yes, it is that way, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about, that you can use my referral code, say Success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Say, this is what the difference. If you get that 10% discount, that almost it is 9,000 rupees difference. You can benefit out of it. And more than this Plus program, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly recommend Iconic program. What is that? You will be allotted a personal coach, a mentor, to understand your nature and to suggest study planner according to your nature. You will get personalized or customized study planner, and also you will be trained on everyday basis in terms of answer writing exercises. Ladies and gentlemen, that it's though it is virtual program, given COVID situation, a new normal you undergo. That you don't waste time, you utilize the time availability, that too with quality education. The India's #1 online platform, say Unacademy, that through with the support of technology reaching you. You have to seize that particular opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, that please use my referral code here, say Success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Here too you have, the 12 months program, 24 months program, 36 months program. And given virtual program, that you get individual attention through the so-called, personal coach or mentor. Ladies and gentlemen, once you apply, the very 10% discount, you see almost, that the difference, the 15,000 rupees differences. Technically speaking, you end up paying, 80 to 100 rupees if you calculate on per day basis. That's not even, meeting. You might be aware the evening snacks for which what you spend the same amount, but you ensure your career. Ladies and gentlemen, you ensure your career through that way. Yes, you understand, and you might be aware the icon, the price hike is on the cards when it comes to Iconic program. Ladies and gentlemen, seize the opportunity, benefit more. Yes. And it's not only that, for all popular optional subjects for which are, that we extend support on the part of Unacademy. Here too you have, you can choose starting from 1 month to maximum 36 months. Ladies and gentlemen, the program, please use my referral code, say Success, to avail maximum 10% discount. When you go for it, of course, that you get, almost 5k difference, 5,000 rupees difference. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and that learning is fun. For that, we've got a program called Gamification. Of course, Unacademy Combat program. You can participate by enrolling yourself, part of, that the very, that Unacademy. That earn while you learn. That it's almost like puzzle solving. You are going to solve the question. You're going to score good marks. Of course, you're going to get good ranks. Based on that, all attractive that incentives will be given to you. You might be aware. Please enroll yourself to benefit more. Not only that, when we talk about 2021 prelims, you might be aware, the very notification is likely to be in the month of February. You have to apply within March, but the very the prelims is on 27th June. You have been already released the calendar by UPSC. You got hardly 6 months, ladies and gentlemen. When you talk about forthcoming prelims of 2021, you have to immediately enroll and start learning. You understand? It's not level playing field. Having enrolled yourself, you will come to know, that there are guys who have already become IRS. They also join you to write, prelims to become IAS, IPS. How to bridge the gap? It's not level playing field like this. So you are supposed. That is the reason we emphasize minimum, that you join 2 years program. That too 1 year for the pattern of examination, 1 year for your preparation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got variety of teams, that waiting to support you. That the people with, that the subject matter expertise, that you might be aware, the very top educators on the part of Unacademy. We are waiting for you, ladies and gentlemen. Please rush yourself. That particular program starts by tomorrow, 28th December. You might be aware, and it has got, that is the basic difference between online academy and offline academy. Here you will be having guaranteed syllabus coverage, and subject matter experts, say toppers, the top educators support, and you will be getting prelims test series with analysis. And you can also download the study materials, especially through PDF materials. And we are happy to answer all your questions, especially through dedicated doubt clearing sessions. And we also support you in terms of interview preparations because of the thing you enroll. Ladies and gentlemen, we take care of you all round. It's not only that, whether you aim for 2021, 2022, 2023, whether it is bilingual or exclusive Hindi or exclusive English medium, ladies and gentlemen, we've got variety of teams, waiting to support you so that you become officer or leader in your own capacity, right? And our role is to, that build community. You might be aware, be part of that. As I told you, right, price hike, that is on the card when we talk about iconic program. Rush to, that the benefit out of this particular program. You might be aware. As I told you, right, you will be allotted a personal coach, and you got main test series with evaluation program, and you can also customize your study planner. And you can attend, that even the booster sessions we are talking about. And you can be part of, high intensity workshops. And you can, practice answer writing, that programs, that on daily basis. And you can also, that accelerate your preparation with daily input from our side. Of course, we call content. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. And having, already joined the program, you can upgrade yourself. You can upgrade yourself. This is what we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is right time. That let me take you to the very purpose and direction of today's interaction. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, that you can also refresh yourself meanwhile. Yes. Yes, this is in continuation of the various, sessions. You would have already watched videos, a lot of videos, part of ethics and integrity. You might be aware. This is part of your UPSC civil service examination, especially mains, where you got 1,750 marks. 1,000 marks meant for your, the general studies, 500 marks meant for your optional subject, 250 marks meant for your essay paper. You might be aware. When I say 1,000 marks in general studies, you got 4 papers, paper 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 into 250. Of course, 4 into 250, 1,000 marks. The fourth paper of your GS is otherwise called ethics and integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what is right and what is wrong at this age, definitely. That's why you are sitting in front of me. Huh? You want to be a leader. That you want to, that make difference in the lives of so many people. You want to serve the world, because that says the value system you believe in. It is not mere getting monthly salary. You want to reach powerful positions so that you can help more people. You can reach more people. You can service, that you can do service for so many people. I'm talking about in different capacities. Maybe it's a humble attempt, you begin with, district level. Later you embrace, the whole nation as cabinet secretary. You might be aware. Even as state chief secretary, you become. Even after retirement, your service continues, that you become governor of a particular state. You might be aware. You want to be part of solution by simplifying the complexity. That says, that you want to serve. Even by service, you can reach God. There is a saying. That shows your compassion towards people. You want to make difference in the lives of people. That says, the value system you believe in, the standard, that for which you are working in your life, the principles that you never compromise. You're already practicing ethics, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, when you've got choices in front of you, right and comfort, you always choose right. You don't choose comfort, because you might be aware, if you choose, comfort, you will lose your identity. Yes, by choosing right. What is right? That's decided on the basis of, that the very contextuality, no doubt at all. That varies from place to place, time to time. Once upon a time, we were very happy about globalization. Today, even the Prime Minister, in his, Man Ki Baat speech, you might be aware, that give, that vocal for local, the self-reliant economy, Atmanirbhar. The context differs. How long you are going to be consumer? How long our nation is going to be dump yard for all the finished goods of, developed countries? It's a wake-up call. It is that way. Think globally, act locally. Yes, different kind of value systems we are talking about. So ethics is all about whenever you are perplexed, whenever you are likely to encounter some sort of, ethical dilemmas or situational constraints or contradictions or conflicts, ultimately ethics guiding you through its value system, through its principles, through its standards, so that, ultimately you become part of the solution. But when I say ethics, you can ask me, why don't you think, that all the mechanisms we have, that insufficient or unable to, cater those needs? Definitely we can. But in spite of that, we have got some sort of restrictions, limitations. Because when you talk about, the ethics, it's a kind of, social control mechanism. They're devised to ensure social order, because it's not a new of its kind. Of course, you have to understand several, the means in the name of social control we had in the past also. That's what I used to say, MRS, magic, religion, science. What is magic? Of course, that, the afraid of, even today in Kerala, the interior parts, it's very famous. Sunyam, pilli sunyam. Chilli sunyam, pilli sunyam. Pilli we are talking about the magic, people are afraid of it, black magic, that you might be aware. So the hunting and food gathering society, it was predominantly influenced by magic. Of course, the traditional agrarian society, the social control mechanism is based on religion, faith. People were afraid of nature, afraid of, gods, goddess. You would have heard about, Purandara. That even my mom used to say, when there is, raining, the severe thundering effects, she will say, Arjuna. I used to ask, is Arjuna, that driving chariot there? She will say, yeah. Such is the belief system on the part of people. The epics and Puranas took inroads. They believe that way. So the faith, Varuna, Indra, Purandara, Usha, Aditi. We talk about Vishnu, Shiva. So the fear of God, the faith, ultimately, that became, that religion ultimately brought people together. They were afraid of God, goddess, ultimately. They started leading, good life, good conduct. So that brought social order in the society. So what happened, this is about traditional agrarian society. When you get surplus, naturally, that favored parallelly with various revolutions happen in the Europe, you might be aware. Of course, that industrial revolution you call. Of course, parallelly, we talk about scientific discoveries, inventions, commercial revolution, intellectual revolution. That's ultimately responsible for the establishment of factory-based mode of production, you say. That of course, we begin with industrial revolution in the UK. Science, that it's based on science, the discoveries, inventions. What is the principle of science? Of course, where you talk about empiricism, show me proof attitude. It's not a belief. You should not question the faith or belief. Faith is faith, belief is belief. It's not questioning the belief system. But when it comes to science, scientific temperament, you demand everything. You question everything. Why? Why not? Of course, billion-dollar question we say. Because you want to see the proof for everything. You question the established order, the scientific temperament. Ultimately, you start doing observation, experimentation, verification, hypothesis, everything we talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, and ultimately what happened, right, that justifies the rationalization, the logical connectivity. So in the world of science, the industrial society, there came, ultimately the rationalization or reasoning you call, ultimately there came the very birth of logic, out of which ultimately you talk about, the argumentative dialogue for every thesis, antithesis, then synthesis, then consensual approach, everything, whatever may be, even amendments, part and parcel of it, where you call law, the role of law as a social control mechanism. The different social control. Why do you control society? Why do you regulate the behavior of the society? Then only there will be social order. Then only there will be equilibrium, stability, cohesion. Otherwise, there will be chaos, confusion. When there is no peace, there will be no prosperity. Peace is a requisite for prosperity. We are keep on emphasizing. Peace is a requisite for economic development. Then only you can meet the needs of all those people. Then only there will be happiness. At the end of the day, whether it is Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, everybody talking about by virtue, the knowledge is virtue. By virtue, that you have to get happiness. Even global, that happiness index we are talking about. Of course, a tiny nation, Thimphu contributed. Later, we are talking about the richest countries or not happiest countries in the world. At the end of the day, are you happy? Happiness, summum, bonum, according to Aristotle, we are talking about that way. Ladies and gentlemen, you got variety of social control mechanism so as to ensure social order through social sanction mechanisms too. Positive approval, that negative approval, or positive social sanction, negative social sanction. But whatever may be this law, that should, that get recognition of the people, approval of the people, social sanction of the people. A law without social sanction is ineffective. That's what we are talking about. The Supreme Court judgment on Sabrimala case, or even the so-called, farm laws we are talking about, and associated protests in Delhi, how the government is trying to convince them so as to reach consensual approach, you might be aware. They're talking that way. So variety of social control mechanism, it could be informal or formal. Informal, when I say, maybe folk ways, maybe mores, maybe custom, tradition. But whereas in the formal society, of course, you got law, that as a social control mechanism. It's also not free from limitations. As we said just now, how the peasants movement or, farmers movement in Delhi now against the very law passed by the central government, the 3 farm laws we are talking about. Yes. So ultimately, that law has its own limitation. So people ultimately go for, the very governments ultimately, that is why they've got the provision called Article 368, of course, amendment. Nothing is permanent. Change is permanent. For every thesis, there is antithesis, finally synthesis. You might be aware. So variety of social control mechanisms we have. When you got limitations because of the law, there you got another tool. That's, that ethics, which is meant for, that the knowledge-based society, which is the, that knowledge-based society we are talking about. In Tamil, we say, Arivanda Samudayam. Arivanda Samudayate, Uruvakuvade Engal Nokam. Our politicians speaking this way, you might be aware. In the knowledge-based society, why? Because you got limitations because of the law. You need extraordinary tool where you are supposed to practice your, the conscience. You are supposed to listen your inner voice. You take decision based on your intuition. As that it is the right time to recall Swami Vivekananda. When there is a conflict between your heart and brain, please listen to heart. Sometimes the places you cannot go far, because of your brain, you can go by, that your heart. We're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. So, don't silence your inner voice. Otherwise, there will be crisis of conscience. Inge enna solludhu? All is well, all is well, all is well. Otherwise, there should be a perfect balance between your brain and heart. This is what all about, at the ethics. And even in the name of, emotional intelligence, we will be elaborating more about it. So this ethics, which is said to be the subject matter of knowledge-based society, where you see the predominantly service sector-based, that activities, where you don't need, enforcing agencies or monitoring mechanisms like CCTV, camera, whatever may be. People themselves, they themselves, the people themselves, guide in such a way, they listen to their heart. They listen to ultimately, the inner conscience. There is judge in you. You start listening to that. So this subject is all about that. Given you got variety, it's not a policy paralysis of implementation. The people on the part of implementation, that knowingly does wrong, unethicality. So ultimately, we trace the origin, what happened wrong. So the socialization gone wrong. No internalization of value system. Otherwise, that kadaiviritten kulvarillai. There are no takers when you talk about principles, value system. The social and moral life we are talking about, there are no takers because everybody running after materialism. Of course, you need material for to lead good life, no doubt at all. Material life, the material resources alone cannot give you good life or healthy life. How many of you understand? That's what I said. According to global, that the very happiness index we are talking about, the richest countries are not happiest countries in the world. Rather, the tiny nation like Timpu on the one hand, otherwise Iceland like nation we are talking about. Even Scandinavian countries we are talking about. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. This subject is all about that ethics. As you got the conflicts, contradictions, ethical dilemmas as a public servant when you enter into public administration. You got that ultimately the dilemma where you are guided by this ethics. Ethics, otherwise called the standards, principles, or value system. When I say ethics, it's more than law, but not compromising law. Maybe the law, because of its limitations, sometimes taking you to the rigidity. As Max Weber said, the rationalized bureaucracy, where you become ultimately, as a public servant, iron cage trapped individuals, unable to move this side, that side. You got variety of constraints. Because you become rules Ramanujam. You would have seen Aparachita movie, Onion. Logathala Nallava Yarume Illiya. That rules Ramanujam, ultimately. You are unable to move freely. So the situation expects you to be pragmatic, practical, without compromising, that ultimately the value system or standards or principles where you got, ethics ultimately. So ethics becomes, the pragmatic, practical and flexible, but without compromising law, without compromising the value system, ultimately becoming part of solution and simplifying the complexity. So when I say this particular, that the principles, standards, ultimately guiding you when you are confused, perplexed, ultimately it's working in different domains. Say maybe the basic human values, where we say the TRLPJ. I would have said all those things in the previous session also. That you can also watch TRLPJ. What are all those? The value system part of the basic human values, the truth, responsibility. Otherwise love leads to acceptance. It's not tolerating anybody. And peace and fairness or justice we are talking about. The basic human values. If you don't respect that, you can't live in peace. Otherwise, ethics in personal relations we are talking about. And when you talk about ethics in social relations, there you get the support of Nolan Committee recommendations of UK, where you talk about another set of value system, ethics in social relation. Let me write here, SIOA, OH, L. What is that? Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, leadership. Ethics in social relation, you just apply. As a public servant, this is what the value system you are supposed to practice. It's not I am saying. That Lord Nolan Committee recommendation, it's celebrating silver jubilee now of UK. Otherwise, to keep in your mind, of course, that OA, because of his openness and honesty, and he was elevated to the level of, that SI in the very police department, where he met, that a particular, that event, situations with where he shown, leadership there. Maybe to keep in your mind, it's up to you. You can have your own, story, so that you never forget, as I have something in me. So I said personal, basic human values, TRLPJ, ethics in social relations. All these things ultimately, the moment you practice, ultimately, you become a wonderful person, virtuous person, and you will be happy. I can't give you, the guarantee, you will become, richest person in the world. But I can give you definitely the guarantee you'll be healthy and happiest person in the world. If you practice all these things. And it's not only that, ethics in basic human values, ethics in personal relation, also ethics in social relations we spoke. Not only that, ethics in public administration, where we are talking about another set of value system, LCR, ITF, and UNEC, another code I'm talking about. What is that? Law. That you never compromise law. Ethics in public administration, what law says you have to. Of course, you got, the limitations in the sense where you practice ultimately, you show compassion. You take responsibility. You practice integrity. You maintain transparency. You gel with others. Go for fusion. And the task is great, huge. It can't be done by you alone. That demands team spirit. That's what, I think it is better to recall Ratan Tata's statement: when you walk alone, you may walk faster, but when you walk with your network, you can go far and longer. That talks about team spirit. For that, you have to gel with the team, the right kind of team. It's not gelling with anybody. It may not work. That will spoil the spirit. Because you are the average of the 5 people you are in regular touch with. Who are all those 5 people? The fusion that demands you have to gel with others, a team spirit. Excellence, that it's not an act, as Aristotle said. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, it's a habit. By practice, it never comes by accident. It's not one day fine morning you become excellent artist. By practice you come. Thithiramum kaipazhakkam sendamizhum naapazhakkam. There is a saying in Tamil. The art, you become artist by practice. It is not only any language you can speak by practice, regular practice. And the language learning should be based on necessity, not by force. You might be aware. It's not, trying to enforce your opinion on somebody else. Of course, we talk about excellence and utilitarian aspect. Out of 10 people, if that 8 to, today's, interaction is based on this particular principle, utilitarian principle, maximum happiness for maximum people. Democracy is very clear-cut example. This is how democracy works also. Out of 10 people, if 8, the 7 to 8 people benefiting out of it, go ahead. This is how democracy works. It's a majoritarian democracy. Rule by democracy, rule by majority, not by majoritarian rule. That's wrong. That's negativity. Right? It is that way we are talking about. Then patriotism, national interest. It's not, the exclusive domain for, that only soldiers. Hello, you can also practice national interest by not indulging in corruption, by strictly, adhering to the fundamental duties, by your obligation, what are all the charges per property tax, income tax, GST, whatever maybe, you strictly adhere to. You respect the women. Yes, and respect the constitution beyond that. That is also, that several forms you can, that in several forms you can practice, that your patriotism, or you can show your national interest. And also we talk about equity. What is equity? It's not equality. We are all human beings. Of course, we've got differences, male, female, and even transgender we are talking about. Rich, poor. And also the impact of the caste system, the oppression, suppression. That's why we justify protective discrimination, positive discrimination, reservation without compromising meritocracy. And further, we have got variety of provisions. Though article, that the 12 to 35, we are talking about fundamental rights. Article 14 and 15, where we talk about right to equality. Even Article 15 talking about prohibition of discrimination on various grounds. But parallelly, we say nothing in this article shall prevent a state or central government from providing special provisions for weaker section and minorities. In terms of Article 15 within bracket 4, 16 within bracket 4. Article 17, 18, 24, 29, 13. I keep on, repeating this in several sessions, but by this time you should be well aware. Article 45, 164, 275, 338, 340, 342, 5th schedule, 6th schedule, 73rd, 74th constitutional amendments. Yeah, come on, why not? The 1/3 of reservation for women. Everything, various schemes and policies, programs enunciated so as to take care of, the welfare of, downtrodden, Dalit people, those who are all oppressed, suppressed, otherwise those who are all very needy people. Where you justify equity, you understand unique problems on the part of the people. That's equity. Then ultimately you practice, that, this may be compassion. You show, that you are benevolent towards people. And here your commitment, that towards service. And here you talk about sensitivity. You show sensitivity to the occasion. You understand, the vulnerability on the part of the people, a particular section of the population. So all this, that, and also anonymity. It's not competing with politicians to paste, that wall poster, saying that I did that, I did this, my government. What your government? People's government. You may be thrown out, after 5 years, right? The ego should go. My government, I did. Who said? Very ugly. I couldn't tolerate. We couldn't tolerate. I did. Naan dan, aழிந்தான். There is a saying in Tamil. Ahankar. eh? So the very purpose of yoga asana meditation, to put that knife on your ahankar, only me attitude. eh? We are talking about. So anonymity is the core principle of the public ethics in public administration. Public servant, you should practice anonymity. This government, you have to speak that way. It's not quoting any single name. Are you? Are you? How many of you? I'm talking about, I'm talking about bureaucrats as well as politicians. My government, how long? After 5 years, you'll be thrown. Are you aware of it? You got elections. The people with that maturity will never say, I never did anything. I discharged my duty. That's all. I did nothing. That's what the greatest, maturity on the part of, the highly educated or intellectual people. Even Socratic irony we call. I knew nothing. That's what Socrates. Humble people. But that is what I'm keep on emphasizing. That when all intellectuals are full of doubts due to various limitations, different theories, perspectives, the fools are with confidence. The roadside, assertive they are. That all those things. We are keep on making mockery of all those. It's your time pass. Of course, you might be aware. So I'm talking about ethics in public administration and anonymity, the core principle. I said. And not only that, environmental ethics we are talking about. So the principles of ethics not only restricted to the humanity, you go beyond that to embrace even environment we are talking about. You apply the standards or principles not only to the humanity, you extend beyond that. For flora, fauna, the living and non-living, we say biotic and abiotic, the visible and invisible forms of life we are talking about. Of course, that where we talk about, I need not write, it will be, we've got another session, of course, that, and you'll be dealt separately. But parallelly, biocentrism, anthropocentrism, stewardship, environmental justice, environmental racism, ecocentrism. We are talking about the variety of, that all these things ultimately, that the ethics part of environmental, why you apply the principles or standards or the value system, not only to the humanity. That is what we say, be kind to every kind, not only mankind. That's environmental ethics. Otherwise, you just recall the principle of Jiva Karunya by Vallalar, the great Vallalar, Vadiya Payirai Kandabodellam Vadinen. Whenever I see a plant is dying, I feel as if I am dying. That extraordinary sensitivity, as that J.C. Bose said, even plant has got, the sensitivity. That is the point. And prior to Marconi, the J.C. Bose did everything, but he did not, that commercialize. Are you aware? He did not even go for, that the very patenting. Are you aware of it? Such a greatest, that legends lived in this country. Are we honoring them? Or at least, are we, that walking in the path of those guys? If you speak this way, you become, too ideal. You are very ideal here. You are not practical here. Of course, you are practical for survival. We are very ideal for excellence. It's good to be ideal. Even Mark Zuckerberg, everybody. Why don't you live social? We are tired of all your practicality, flexibility. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you go out, that the entire, the garbages, the corruption in kind, all around, that the erosion of value system. So ultimately, what happened, right? You don't like to, you don't want drama or individual absurdity. You don't want to talk with anyone. Because that the moment you try to talk, they are waiting to, that throw, they treat you as a dustbin. You should not open it. The moment you open it, people are ready there to put some garbages. Please, there are mobile dustbins in the roadside. It's not speaking bad. Such is the contamination. It is not speaking, the system, that there are guys countering, the system is wrong, the concept is wrong. What wrong? And you are the spoiler. And you are the party to that, I'm saying. For the sake of your survival, you did all-round unethicalities. You don't have right to speak, first of all. How long you are going to cheat people? We know everything. We are talking about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about, those unethicality working in the roadside. Of course, it's not only that, extending the very principles, value system, even beyond the humanity, even beyond the national level, you apply in the international context too. Where we are talking about international ethics, it's not only me attitude. We are all stakeholders when it comes to global affairs. We are talking about, the constructivism, of course, we are talking about. Yes, we are talking about. So the value system like that, I'm not going to elaborate there. Let me stop somewhere because it'll be whole syllabus talk then. Ladies and gentlemen, ethics in different domains. Hope you would have got some ideas somewhere out to stop. That to take you to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way, and also linking with the context, the very syllabus, how the previous year's questions are asked. எட்டு சொரக்கா கறிக்கு உதவணும். It's not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because delivery matters. We are talking about it. And not only that, so the very principle, the Western moral thinkers, when we are talking about, that we said, that Socrates, whose disciple, student, of course, Plato, and Plato's student, Aristotle. And that Aristotle was the mentor for, the great Alexander for 5 years of Macedonia. You might be aware, we discuss everything. According to them, that what is that? Knowledge is virtue. But when Socrates and Plato, they say, that knowledge is virtue, they're very ideal, but Aristotle made it pragmatic. It's not, knowing is not doing. You have to apply. He made it very pragmatic, you might be aware. We discussed at length, that you would have watched, Western, the Greek philosopher, the ancient Greek philosophers, you might be aware. And now, in that path, that we are going to discuss another principle called utilitarianism. It's all about, it's not those olden days. Of course, that at the end of 18th century, the beginning of 19th century, we are talking about the English utilitarians, especially. They are called, that Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. First of all, what is utilitarianism? Because just now we have seen. Utilitarianism is all about, that it's favoring the principle of hedonism. The pleasure is better than pain. Maximum happiness for maximum people. It may be the gross utilitarianism of Jeremy Bentham, or it may be a refined version of utilitarianism by John Stuart Mill. We are going to talk about. From quantitative utilitarianism to qualitative utilitarianism, we are going to talk about it. So what is this utilitarianism? It is based on the principle called hedonism. What is hedonism? Pleasure is better than pain. But that pleasure, that should be in ethical way. How that pleasure should be? Maximum happiness, for maximum people. The greatest happiness for greatest number. Clear-cut example, democracy, you might be aware. So we are going to discuss this particular principle, of course, which is part of several value systems. This is how democracy, even modern democracy works, you might be aware. The Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, we are going to discuss their contributions, and we are going to criticize them, in what way they differ each other. And finally, linking with, that the previous year questions, and we are going to provide solutions too. And taking you to the world of, resources, in what way you can move to the next level to enrich your understanding. Yes, when we talk about the very subject matter ethics, that how you say, sir, there are several sources. The sources from what? Maybe the contribution of greatest thinkers like this, the Western moral thinkers, and also the Indian philosophy, where you talk about orthodoxy or heterodoxy. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, that you come to know the writings through writings of, Mahatma Gandhi ji, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Rabindranath Tagore, Sarvabali, Dr. Radhakrishnan, and so many, the writings, but, through their writings, you come to know through especially the reflections of Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. Even the very Charvakas, Ajivikas, you come to know. The principle, the very Marxism, the conflict school of thought, Marxism, what we are talking about. Prior to that, you had Charvakas in India. Of course, they are not part of orthodox school of philosophy, but heterodox school of Indian philosophy. They could not survive for long. The Charvakas were forerunners, to this, that the Marxist people or the so-called communist people today you talk. When Karl Marx spoke about, class system and associated exploitation, Charvakas spoke about, that caste system and associated exploitation. Are you aware of it? It is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, I think, that the several religions and, the thinkers, philosophers, and social scientists contributed, tremendously to the domain of ethics, the subject matter we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why we started discussing, the Western moral thinkers. Now, at the end of 18th century and beginning of 19th century, the English utilitarians, especially through the perspective called utilitarianism school of thought we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you in. Yes. Excuse me. Yes, whenever you encounter, that ethical dilemma or conflicts or situational constraints, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, that ethical dilemma could be this way. Whether you may be speaking in terms of environmental sustainability or you may be speaking in terms of economic development. Economic development should not be at the cost of environmental sustainability, or economic development should not be at the cost of, a section of population, by compromising, the downtrodden people or Dalits. No, we have to take everybody on board. Then only it is called inclusive governance. You might be aware, we are keep on emphasizing this. In democracy, rejection leads to isolation, or rejection leads to social exclusion. When people are excluded, they will form movements, they will enter into protest movements. The social movements may be symbolic, may be instrumental. Then ultimately the governments, they have to react or respond, because that otherwise that will create some sort of chaotic situation, affects law and order, affects stability, equilibrium in the society. That goes against peace of the nation or national integration. Then that affects, prosperity or happiness overall. We're talking about, so, the economic development should not be at the cost of section of population, taking everybody on board. That's why inclusive governance, even part of it, financial inclusion, taking the banking, to the grassroots level, even taking the governance to the grassroots level. That's what you call, that self, the local self-government, democratic decentralization. Even the, the information should not be centralized. You talk about decentralization of information, where you talk about, Right to Information Act. Yes, it is that way, even the judiciary also, we are talking about Grama Nyayalaya bill, taking judiciary to the grassroots level. Why not? When that is the scenario, that, so the banking, should reach even every doorstep, even Bandhan, microfinance, we are talking about, even today you speak, the self-help groups. It is that way. So economic development should not be the development of few. So economic development also, that should not lead to, of course, we are talking about, the environmental degradation. The way with which, that we are handed over the planet of the same, that we have to hand over to the future generation. We are the trustees. The living members are called trustees. You got responsibility. The growth that lasts forever, growth should not be at the cost of future generation. Yes, we're talking about it. So all these things, where you got, dilemmas ultimately. Whether to, bypass all those environment impact assessment or National Green Tribunal, or violating the norms recommended by, the India's Green Action Plan, or violating Panchayat Extension Services Act, or ignoring the recommendations of Grama Sabha, the 243 article we are talking about. Yes, that it's not, compromising. And not only that, it's not taking asylum in law. It is not the law. It's delivering the goods necessary for the people. Even the farm laws bills, of course, the government is trying to reach consensus by various mechanisms. It's not taking, that it's not simply citing law according to law. What is the use of law? After law, we are talking about what is law? It is the evolution, social norms. You express your, the desire, your preference. You express, that your desire or preference through social values, general guidelines to an action. When it becomes more specific, it's called social norms. When you codify, when you document, when you formalize, that becomes law. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand what I'm talking about? After all, law reflects the will of the people, intentions of the people. But the very law going against the intentions of the people, there comes contradiction. So is it law on paper? Or, that whether, that the the legislations, that legislature, central or state, whether they are not properly communicated. Otherwise, is it responsibility on the part of the legislature to ignore the needs or intentions of the people? Several questions ultimately you talk about. Otherwise, you say a law without social sanction is ineffective. But whenever, you also parallelly suspect this kind of, the protest movements. Who is behind this? What is the motive? Whether it is the role of opposition to oppose everything introduced by the ruling party. And this and all the reforms hitherto, that the agenda of previous regimes, when you implement, the very party tried to implement, the same party has become your opposition party now opposing everything. And also the corrupt media, and also the suspected elements, the trying to destabilize national integration. Maybe, the communist elements you talk about, or even, the Khalistan element. At the same time, there comes question on the part of the government. Have you ensured, because of this, that laws, that the small and marginal farmers, not getting affected? We keep on talking about, have you ensured justice, fairness? It's not taking asylum in the name of reform, perform, transform, or perform or perish. At the same time, we have to take on board. Otherwise, government keep on saying that, that no dismantling of MSP or procurement mechanism, even it's not going against the subsidy. And also, that the provision of, the fast track court, but in spite of that, the fear. So on the one hand, liberalization of, agriculture sector, on the other hand, protection of, small and marginal farmers or agricultural community. So this is ethical dilemma. Government has to, that walk this tightrope, reach consensus. Yes, of course, it is not always talking about your rights. We are keep on talking about, that have you discharged your duties, obligatory part. We are talking about it. It's not always enforcing fundamental rights, Article 12 to 35, jurisdiction, writ jurisdiction. You talk about, when aggrieved individuals can approach court through writs provision. Yes. Article 32, Article 226, fantastic. Of course, Article 32, Dr. Ambedkar said, no doubt, heart and soul of the Constitution, fantastic. Have you discharged your duties? கடமையை செய்வதிலிருந்தே உரிமைகள் பிறக்கின்றன. எனக்கு அது கூட, give me that, give me this, what you did, what you contributed to the nation. That's what that JFK, that we are talking about, John F. Kennedy. Don't ask what the nation has done to you. Please ask yourself what you have done to the nation. I keep on talking about it. Your obligation. This is what I have to speak. This is what the syllabus, no other go. Yes. Have you discharged your duties? That's why the Constitution not only talking about fundamental rights, it has fundamental duties also, where you got 11 duties. It's not talking about competition. We as a nation, that we have to compete with other nations in the world, so that, that the global warming can be stopped, or by mitigating reduction of the greenhouse gases to the pre-1990 level, as said by the Kyoto Protocol. If all nations have got, equal responsibility, what about those nations, developed countries, when they were polluting for a long time? They have got, more responsibility than these developing nations, and underdeveloped nations, they are all yet to establish industry. So there comes ultimately, we are talking about, it's not a compatibility among nations. That each and every nation is unique, with unique problems, with unique success story, with unique, past history, exploitation, colonization, imperialism, whatever may be. That's the scenario. It is not compatibility. It is not all nations coming together, competing each other. You have to understand this is not level playing field, where you have to understand the unique problems on the part of the nation. So you developed countries, you benefited more by exploiting the resources. You have to pay first. Polluter must pay. Share your technology. You share some funding with these developing and underdeveloped nations, and also share more time for them to catch up, to your level. With more power comes more responsibility. We are talking about it. It is that way, this is part of, United Nations framework, Convention on Climatic Change, where we talk about Conference of Parties meeting, especially Kyoto Protocol. This is almost like other ventures, the Paris Climatic Agreement, what we are talking about, prior Montreal Protocol. You might be aware, Rio de Janeiro Summit. It is part of, United Nations, the environment program we are talking about. So the competition versus compatibility. Even, it is not expecting, all citizens, they have to compete each other so as to make nation developed country. But there are guys, yet to come out of their basic needs. Roti, kapada, makan. Later you can talk about bijli, sadak, pani. Unable to meet their basic needs. 40% of the population, are going to bed, that hungry. BP, below poverty line. Of course, that we say lifeline, public distribution system, National Food Security Act. Poor implementation. It's not a policy paralysis. Paralysis of implementation. On the one side, the food grains are getting wasted in the Food Corporation of India godowns, because the capacity is only for 40 million, the tons of grains, but we have, procured already more than, 100 million tons. But other side, there are people starving, and especially cotton farmers are committing suicide. And given such a vagarousness, that ultimately the inequalities in the society, it's quite dangerous. How come you can talk about, compatibility? That demands actually, that you have to understand unique problems on the part of every sections of population. As said by Mahatma Gandhi, one of the 7 sins, politics without principles. Politics per se, fantastic, no doubt. It's a noble profession. Such a politics, that honored by people like Mahatma Gandhi ji, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Pandit Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, and those, that Gopala Krishna Gokhale, Justice Ranade, and V.D. Savarkar, and that C.F. Andrews, Deshabandhu, Dinabandhu, so many people. We are talking Bala Gangadhar Tilakar and Bombay Triumvirate, so many people ultimately. But the very politics today, it is not because of, it's a bad element entered into politics, bad politician. Don't ask, that's what, don't ask what the nation has done to you. Please ask yourself what you have done to the nation. Don't expect what that power has given to you, what you have added value to that power. There is a difference between, that the prestige and esteem. The prestige, whoever may be X, Y, Z, anybody can get that power, can command respect because of that position. That's called prestige. The prestige, the value attached with that status. What the value you add is called esteem. The several presidents of India we have witnessed, but Dr. Kalam became, people's president. How? The value he added. Value. There were several freedom fighters when you talk about India's, independence movement. But Mahatma Gandhi, that's why Mahatma, the sacrifice, Ahimsa, the policy, such is the politics of India. But today we are talking about the scamsters, the Harvard-educated scamsters we are talking about. And in the name of that the caste-based organization, they are political brokers working for their own self-expediency. You go and see there what after 10 o'clock what they are doing. You will understand how your leaders are. Oh my God, we are talking about the bad elements, the bad politicians entered into politics, they contaminated, that's why without principles, because the very, that what is that? To capture the power at any cost. And they got, the conventional slogan for that, in politics, nobody is untouchable. In politics, nobody is permanent friend and nobody is permanent enemy. And they will say marriage of convenience, it will become marriage of inconvenience after some time. When the suitcase deal is not proper, ultimately they will divorce each other. And also you have to understand in Indian polity, the constitution, there are several flaws I'm keep on talking about. That on the one hand, there will be several political parties, that standing each other. People would have believed, one particular political party, they would have voted. And this guy, what happened, having become MLA, MP, what will happen? They will go for, the coalition politics. Where the very party against which they voted this guy and another party, they will combine together to form the government. I'm talking about. That is not the expectation. It's not making democracy, that it's a dereliction of democracy, mockery of the democracy we are talking about. So, who gave you authority? What is the solution for that? We are talking about, the constitution. And also I said in the defection, anti-defection law, you don't favor, that retail defection, you favor wholesale, the defection. Another flaw we are talking about, whatever may be. So the principles, people are not standing for principles. The manifestos on paper, not on implementation. We are talking about people are no more, so people also should be equally blamed. It's not blaming exclusively the political parties alone, political leaders alone. As long as you demand 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees per vote, they're very happy to give you. At the same time, that after that you can't question them. You will get only that kind of leadership. You can't question them. It's almost like, that the business, come and invest in Tamil Nadu, which is said to be 43% commission government. We are talking about. And that what's your state's, the corruption. You please talk to your own elders, politicians. We are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, that way. So the politics, that versus ethics, politics without principles, we are talking about. Social mobility versus, that equity. It's talking about, the progress. We are talking about societal progress. Social mobility, we are talking about. And equity, that when you talk about, you understand the unique problems on the part of the people. It's not talking about, the corporate, growth because of that India developed. It's not talking about mere economic growth. Have you created concomitant employment generation? Otherwise, it's called jobless growth. As long as you don't fix all those social issues and widening gap between rich and poor, if you don't address that inequality, then how come we can call, welfare nation, the paternalistic nation? There comes responsibility on the part of the government. So understanding the unique problems on the part of every sections of population, downtrodden, Dalits, minorities, the marginal and small farmers, the women, children, transgender, physically differently abled people, tribal people. So it is in the name of social mobility progress, that you go for heavier projects, building dams, of course, temples of modern India. Pandit Nehru said. But what happened? That is not, that has ultimately caused internal displacement. That's another social theory. According to various sociologists, are you aware of it? In the name of development, you displace population. Are you providing, proper rehabilitation measures, resettlement? It is not taking the fish out of the water, saying that tomorrow morning I will give you fantastic, the breakfast in the Lee Meridian. Probably I'll take you buffet for, that ultimately Park Sheraton Hotel. Who asked you? By the time the fish is no more, died. It's not taking fish out of the water and deciding what should be the habitat for the fish. It may not survive. Who are you to decide the habitat first of all? For the sake of your, the social progress or economic development? Who gave you authority to disrupt, that their own habitats? After all, they are native indigenous people. It's that way. You have to understand the unique problems. It's not possible otherwise. We are talking about, so in the name of, social progress or economic development, who asked you to lay 8-lane roads between, Salem to Chennai to favor, corporate Jindal? Who asked you to travel faster? And having reached Chengalpattu, it will take another 3 hours to reach, Paris Corner. Are you aware? In Chennai, I'm talking about, I'm talking about 8-lane project in Chennai. Is it favoring few corporates? We talk that way. It is that way. So good governance versus ethical governance. We are talking about the good governance when you say, transparency, responsibility, accountability on the part of administration. Fantastic. Even second administrative reform commission talking about it. Fantastic. But what about ethical governance beyond that? When you got limitations, that the policy paralysis nahi hai. It's a paralysis of implementation. The bad people on the part of implementation. They indulge in corruption, nepotism, favoritism, cronyism. Ethical governance, we talk about, it's not mere your IQ, EQ, emotional quotient. And also instilling on the part of the corporates, we are talking about, corporate social responsibility. 2% of your operating cost should be spent over, the very locality out of which, that you make profit. The resources you exploit in that particular region, out, that you make profit out of that particular region, do you properly compensate them? Do you show gratitude towards them? There comes another question. And also scientific social responsibility. You scientists keep on talking about, R&D, okay, good, fantastic, thanks to reverse brain drain to some extent. But, is it going to benefit the humanity? Is it going to benefit Indians first? Whatever you do, the research, that's why whenever you got perplexed in that way, that's what Mahatma Gandhi says. You think about, the face of, the poorest of the poor. Whatever you do, if it is going to benefit that, poorest of the poor, that you are traveling in the right direction. So ethical governance, we are talking about inclusive governance, justified. Everything, ladies and gentlemen. So ethical dilemma, either to travel this direction or this direction. That you talk about, you got choices in front of you. Right or comfort. It's not choosing right. It's not choosing, the comfort. You are choosing right. If you choose, comfort, you lose your identity. Otherwise, most of the best things in the world beyond comfort zone. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, this is fantastic. Of course, ethical dilemmas or conflicts or contradictions you witness in your day-to-day life. Part of, that the very, the governance mechanism or social domain, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately ethics guiding you. The principles, standards you believe in, cutting across different domain, that ultimately you are guided by ethics, which is more than law, not compromising law. I told you many a times, in the world of, that law, only on violating a particular law, only when you on penalization, you feel guilty. But in the world of ethics, that even thinking of violating, that law, you feel guilty. We're talking that way. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. Yes, the general studies, of course, the very syllabus, what we are talking about, the 250 marks paper 4. Give me 1 second, please, Yes, the very paper for what we are talking about, 250 marks, this is what the syllabus recommendation. Of course, you say the candidate's attitude and approach towards issues relating to integrity, probity in public life, and the problem solving approach to various issues. Of course, you got case studies we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. While dealing with society, especially because, out of 250 marks, 120 marks meant for your thinkers portion, the theories, the contribution from different thinkers, and various domains of ethics and associated value systems based on the questions. But whereas, you got another 130 marks, that's completely based on case studies. And you're going to apply the same principles here, and which has got its own template. While we already discussed a lot of, case studies. You please watch part of, the platform as well as YouTube videos. And we'll be discussing more case studies also in the future. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. This is what the syllabus, and also that you got that if you want to see the real syllabus, this is all the titles of different units of your syllabus. You might be aware: attitude, aptitude, emotional intelligence, ethics and human interface, the contributions of several moral thinkers, and the value system part of ethics in public administration, probity in governance, and all these theories and concepts. When you apply, it's otherwise called case studies. We are talking about 130 marks. This is what your syllabus, the elaborated syllabus, you please download from upsc.gov.in, ladies and gentlemen. Right, excuse me. Yes. And 2 days, of course, that you got, that very good introduction, I believe. Of course, if you got any queries further, you can type your questions. I'll be very happy to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of discussion today, I said in the beginning, I gave you introduction, utilitarianism, utility, the purpose, the greatest happiness of the greatest number. That is what, the utilitarianism is all about. The greatest happiness of whatever you do, whatever policy, whatever program, whatever maybe your measure or effort you take, part of that social relation or personal relation, environmental domain or international domain, ethics in public administration, then it is going to fetch the greatest happiness of greatest number or maximum people, maximum happiness for maximum people. Then you are strictly adhering to utilitarianism, which is the one of the values on the part of that ethics in public administration. This is otherwise called altruistic. It is selfless service. It is not selfish motive. Altruism, something which benefits society. The benefits the collectivity. You're talking about you are in favor of the welfare of the nation, welfare of the humanity. So it's otherwise called universalistic form of ethical hedonism. Of course, it is hedonism. What do you mean by hedonism? It's a pleasure-seeking principle. Pleasure is better than pain. In that sense, don't reduce yourself to the level of comfort. This pleasure is better than pain, no doubt at all. We are talking about. So this pleasure, what we are talking about, is called ethical pleasure. Even the Purusharthas, we are talking about the pillars of Hindu social organization: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Of course, you recall Dr. Kalam also. What he said, of course, that where there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. So that begins with individual's righteousness, dharma, that leads to peace in the world. That's Dr. Kalam. His quote also, that came on previous question in UPSC. Especially, that ethics and integrity. So here you talk about, that the very pleasure what you are going to enjoy should be based on dharma. Of course, Purusharthas, the very pillar concepts we are talking about. What is that? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. We are going to discuss. We've got another question also. In Dharma way, the righteousness is the path through which ultimately Artha, you that you earn materials, which is badly needed for your survival. Then ultimately, all worldly pressures, sensual pleasure, you meet Dharma in the righteousness way, Dharma way. Dharma, Artha, Kama. If you do that, finally you reach Moksha. You become one with the God, one with union, one with the enlightenment. Jivatma joining Paramatma. That's according to Hindu social organization. Got the idea? So it is Purusharthas, otherwise called, they are 4 pillars of Hindu social organization. We are talking about. So this pleasure is justified. Why? It is based on Dharma. This Artha, the material you earn, is justified. It is based on Dharma. I'm not talking about, that the very, the stealing of someone else's property, it's getting justified. No. Aparigraha, we are talking about. That's adharma. All corrupt money, we are talking about adharma way. That won't stay for long. And it has got its own consequences. It will not leave alone. It is that way we are talking about, that the staunch belief in the value system we are talking about. So this is, this utilitarianism is otherwise called based on, it's not based on selfish motive. It's based on the welfare of everyone, altruism, selfless service. And it is not parochial, local. It is universal principle of what? The hedonism. What is that hedonism? After all, in hedonism, you are sophisticated personality. You want to enjoy comfort more than pain. Of course, no pain, no gain. But you can also live comfortably, but it should be based on dharma, ethical, the ethicality, the value system, not contradicting the value system, the standards or principles for which that you live, you are taught. Then it is called ethical hedonism, the pleasure what you gain. Nothing wrong. So the utilitarianism is also explained. It's not only maximum happiness for maximum people, the selfless or that altruistic, that universalistic form of ethical hedonism we are talking about. There is a saying, adara padara sambaricha panam kadara kadara poi seru. It takes one generation because that's what life cycle. Otherwise, that. So there is a saying in Tamil, that panakkaran magan selavali. Rich men, the son of rich men, of course, that ultimately extravagant person. The son of extravagant person, maybe the Siddharth Malaya, you have to speak. Vijay Malaya here. Extravagant person, ultimately what happened? Whose son becomes ultimately bad debtors. Bad debtor, that guy. You'll get, Kadan Pattar Nijam Bol, Kalanginan Ilangai, when there is a saying, he will become, he has to owe money to the institution. This bad debtor's son ultimately becomes, a responsible guy. This responsible guy's, son becomes, hardworking guy. Then hardworking guys, that son ultimately becomes, rich man. This is a cycle. Panakkaran Magan Selavali. I'm saying in Tamil, the same English translation is also available. Don't worry. Panakkaran Magan Selavali. Selavali in Magan Kadankaran. Kadankaran Magan Puruppali. Puruppali in Magan Udaipali. Udappali in Magan Panakkaran. This is a cycle. You please locate yourself where you are. This is cycle. Of course, that that is what the essence of Bhagavad Gita. What's today? What's yours today? It becomes that somebody else tomorrow. Day after that, day after tomorrow, it becomes that goes to totally a new person. Nothing is permanent in the world. When it is not based on value system, there will not be longevity, sustainability. And also parallel, you have to prepare your future generation to execute that, to run that in ethical way. Otherwise, they won't, that ensure the survival of those resources, for which you worked hard. If it is based on dharma, that will go on. Adharma, in front of, within a single generation in front of your eyes, it may not survive. It will get shattered. And what kind of generation we are, that producing or nurturing by going, in the path of adharma, there comes totally different question. So the very pleasure what you gain, I'm elaborating, yeah, that's fantastic. You have to understand. So the hedonism, what is hedonism? Pleasure. Pleasure is the highest good and supreme deal of life. The people who believe this, they are called hedonists. But here, the utilitarianism talks about ethical hedonism, not unethical hedonism. You can also do hacking. It's called ethical hacking. Why? When it is for the welfare of the humanity, in favor of the nation and its national security, it's called ethical hacking. It's not what you do hacking, that you poke your nose in somebody else, privacy, ultimately you are punished. That's not hacking. That for that you will be, you are liable to get penalized. That's different scenario. But we also call ethical hacking. How? You can also enter into, the privacy of someone else. Why? That, the end justifies the means. The outcome justifies your, that hacking. Though it is wrong. This is based on Tirukural. Even a lie is getting justified as long as it is going to benefit the humanity, that otherwise, the greater communities. Yes, it is that way. So hedonism, a pleasure, but we are talking about ethical hedonism. So action is morally right if the consequences of the action are more favorable than unfavorable to everyone. So whatever you do, so that is what you have to devise your goal in such a way that parallelly benefits society. It is not your goal contradicting the established value system of the society. You have to earn money, you are ambitious. It's not by exploiting the resources meant for the nation. Then you won't go, you won't travel far. Otherwise, you want to generate wealth for the society. That is what we are going to discuss. Parallelly, that you satisfy your ego. That's also parallelly benefiting the society. We are going to address that. So action is morally right when only when the consequences, the more favorable to everyone, that benefits the society. It's not benefiting you alone. That becomes, selfish motive. That's what, the Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, they did. That's why they are unethical people. All Ponzi schemes, scamsters in India, Colgate, Spectrum Gate, everything. They're talking about it. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take you to the next level. Yes. So moral worth of an action. Moral worth of an action is solely determined by its contribution to the overall utility. The same, with the different, the nomenclatures we are talking about. When you contribute for the overall utility, that the action, when you strictly adhere to morality, the ethicality, all your actions will get rationalized. Whatever you do, whatever you contribute, definitely that will benefit humanity, the whole society, the collectivity. So that will benefit the whole humanity. That's what we are talking about. So you have to devise or nurture goal in such a way that benefits, that takes nation to the next level, the humanity to the next level. Then you are visionary, a far-sighted person. We all have eyes. Some are visionary. It's not benefiting we alone. It's not benefiting your family alone. The dynasty rule we hear, they can't travel far. The resources won't be long lasting, we are talking about. How long? That is what we are saying. Nenjila manja irukra rajavukku, he can build the fort. A guy with courage, the king, he can build fort. The fort, everything. A guy without courage, even though he is a king, can never protect himself. Every day you are afraid of everybody. The machination, plot. Come on, capacity building should be done. Enable yourself. We are talking about whoever may be. Whoever may be. Mere, the titular head is not sufficient. There are leaders without title. They go any part of the world, they win. The winning is not defeating anybody, winning the hearts of everyone. That is long lasting. Try to establish your empire by winning the hearts of everyone, not by defeating everyone. Because a guy who got defeated at your hands, maybe by, that malafide means, you won today, tomorrow that guy will take revenge. He will come back. How long you are prepared? By the time you become weak, you want to put wrong. This is continuity. That's why when you take violence, of course, kathiyo tottavanukku kathila da. There is no solution through violence we are talking about. You may win today, permanently you get defeated. But that's a different scenario. When in the name of protecting nation, if you want to protect, the nation, of course, it may be land of Buddha, Mahatma Gandhi, not Buddhus. We justify India's nuclear doctrine in different tone. India's, that defense policy, that is no more defensive. It is offensive. Because Balakot incident, we are talking about everything is justified. Where we are talking about in the name of protecting, even what we have done wrong, you may be talking about unethicality. But the point is that it's getting justified in the name of protecting your country people. Doing justice to the protection of the people. When it benefits the whole nation, it is justified. That is why I know it's no more defensive, it is offensive. It is justified in the name of protection of our own people, the collectivity, maximum happiness for maximum people we are talking about. So as long as whatever the action you resort to, when it is influenced by morality, ethicality, definitely it will benefit the the whole society, the collectivity. Maximum happiness for the maximum people. So this utilitarianism is not favoring that egoism. It's not favoring that 100% altruism too. It's neither favoring egoism nor altruism. It is not 100% because there are some people left out in the process also. Maximum happiness for maximum people with minimal damages, because you can devise another tool to take care of those people also. It's not possible to be 100% idealistic to benefit 100% people. Definitely there will be deviations, because people are unique. You might be aware. So that altruism, that 100% may not be successful. That the people, that failed, getting all those benefits, ultimately they may accuse the government as if, that they exploited them. Definitely there'll be gap. We understand the practicality. So it's neither promotes egoism nor altruism. It's not saying that, I did everything. That's egoism. When, that's what we are going to categorize the very utilitarianism. That it is a gross utilitarianism or refined utilitarianism, whether it is quantitative utilitarianism or qualitative utilitarianism. That is between, the Jeremy Bentham on the one hand, John Stewart on the other. So this utilitarianism is also called consequentialist approach, because that end justifies the means. You're more bothered about outcome, the purpose at the end, or end otherwise, whatever means you choose based on, that ultimately the nature of the ends. It's called teleological approach otherwise. It's based on the consequences, outcome. Utilitarians also called as consequentialist. They're always bothered about, keep the end in mind, maybe justified here. Keep the end in mind. Whenever you try to, even my dad used to say, whenever you try to do something, think about consequence before executing it. Think in whole big picture, he used to say. It's not thinking in a discrete manner. Even the Prime Minister Modi ji speaks that way. It's not, everyday defeat, everyday success. You have to think in the whole picture. Even the very interview he gave to, that somewhat National Geographic channel, I believe. That. Think it's not evaluating yourself on everyday basis. A defeat, each and every day it counts ultimately. On the whole process, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you have to reach the very right destination, the temple or mosque or church, whatever may be. There should be a holy place where end justifies means. But before you start resorting to those means, choosing the means, think about the consequences. Apply your mind there. So consequentialist approach we are talking about, ends justify the means we are talking about. Of course, this is what utilitarianism, where pleasure is better than pain. We're talking about, even the previous, I think, I think we got other diagram images in such a way. So utilitarianism, that ethical theory, we are talking about the teleological theory. So it's based on teleological theory. It's influenced by the outcome. This is in opposition to deontological. In deontological theory, it's almost like Nishkama Karma Bhagavad Gita. You focus on what you do. Don't think about outcome. That's deontological approach. In the world of ethics, you know that all contributions can be devised this way. It could be either teleological or deontological. Teleological, you are bothered about end or outcome or purpose. Whereas, that in the world of deontological, you focus on the means, on duty. Deon means duty. But where Immanuel Kant says, all human beings should be treated as end. End. He says, deontological approach. The human beings are not as means. You should use things, not people. Unfortunately, what we do, we use people and we respect things. You worship for, Rolls Royce, Audi, Benz, Porsche villa, chartered flight. But you use people. That's very wrong. Unethicality. Vijay Mallya did, Nirav Modi did. Where they are now? Use things, not people. Of course, all human beings should be treated as ends. I'm not saying Immanuel Kant. Might be aware. So, what happens, right? In the world of ethics, you got two theories, teleological theory. This utilitarianism or consequentialist, it's called, teleological theory, because you're most worried about, your focus is more on end. Keep the end in mind whenever you begin. That's the story. Otherwise, here, deontological approach, that you choose, your focus should be means. Your focus should be on duty. This is opposition to teleological theory. We are talking about, so teleological theory, the focus on good or bad consequences of action. You're bothered about outcome. The very outcome, accordingly, it is ethical or unethical. We are talking about. Deontological theory, of course, we said just now, the focus on, that the moral roots without regard to, you are not bothered about, that's what a pure essence of Bhagavad Gita, Nishkama Karma. Renunciation in duty, not renunciation of duty. While doing duty, don't think about outcome or the consequences. Your focus should be on duty. It's that way. So utilitarianism, of course, what we are talking about, it can be classified into act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism in general. Actually, I try to simplify as much as possible. What is the use of telling all those stories when this is, highly relevant for your examination? I touch the core. That's all. It's not complicating simple things. In the books you got variety of stories unnecessary. This is what simple. At the end of the day, this is what the that needed. It may be your notes when you download. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we are talking about, yes, act utilitarianism is based on maximization of happiness in each action. Whatever you do, that should maximize happiness. That can lead to action. Got the point? Now, can lead. Sometimes what happens, that can lead to actions contrary to the common morality. That is why you have to understand that utilitarianism always justifies ethical hedonism. Of course, that something what you do, people are very happy. Maybe the celluloid word, whatever you portray, people are happy. But no, that should not, that contradict, that the established value system principle. No movie can justify violence. At the end of the day, in the conclusion, that there is no solution through violence. That should be the the climax. If you justify violence, that's over. That's over then. That you go against, that you ultimately, that uphold, the value of violence, that may not strong, that stand long. That we are talking about, that can lead to actions contrary to the common morality. People are getting, that influenced by that. Ultimately, that leads to chaos in the society we are talking about. Don't say, people are very happy with that. That's what all unethicality I'm talking about, So you don't have, that the censor board when it comes to Netflix, of course, government thinking about it. So you are talking about Prachar Bharati, everything, you become sensitivity, Batmavat, and so many things we are talking about, whatever may be. But what about Netflix? Or Amazon Prime videos? We're talking about, the Hotstar, the Disney Hotstar videos. Oh my God, MX Player. Oh my God, it's totally free, ultimately, that you're talking about. So it is that way I'm talking about, I'm not, that very traditional thing. Of course, that should reflect the mindset of the people we are talking about. You openly allowed, that you don't want your own people to indulge in mistakes, but you allow foreign players. That is what we are afraid. Even the case of new education policy, that some foreign institutions are going to be allowed for commercialization. Of course, that goes against the very, that native commercialization. You don't want your own native entrepreneurs to exploit your own people, but you allow foreigners to exploit. It's one of the criticism against we are talking about. There comes a lot of things ultimately. So rule, that should not contradict the common morality or value system or principles or standards that we practice, part of our culture, a part of the constitution. But of course, ethics is more than law. You restrict with culture otherwise. So rule utilitarianism, the following general rules which will maximize the happiness we are talking about. So what are all the rules favoring, the maximum happiness? You strictly adhere to. You go by rule. And this talks about you go by action, but at the same time, you ensure that it's not contradicting the common morality of the society or culture. So 18th and 19th century English philosophers and economists, you call English utilitarians, ultimately, the taking this concept to the next level. The contribution from, utilitarianism we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, what is that? Of course, you speak about Jeremy Bentham, the gross or quantitative utilitarianism we are talking about. This gross or quantitative utilitarianism, of course, it's not refined, but whereas John Stuart Mill, we are talking about, Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, of course, belonging to, the 1748, you just go through 18th century, 19th century. So John Stuart Mill, the refined or qualitative utilitarianism, there is a characteristic difference from quantitative to qualitative, from mere gross to refined, we are talking about. J.S. Mill, you would have heard, that one of the greatest intellectuals, that the world has witnessed, along with Einstein, Albert Einstein, Karl Marx, and variety of social scientists, Charles Darwin, and so many people, Thomas Alva Edison, even scientists. So John Stuart Mill, we are talking refined qualitative utilitarianism, whatever may be, the normative ethics, norm, prescription, the rest on the principles of right and wrong perspective. That this utilitarianism is also called as normative ethics because, so it talks about, that it's not mere hedonism favoring, it's not mere pleasure principle is favored here. Ethical hedonism without contradicting, the morality on the part of the society. As he said, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, prusharthas. The four pillars of Hindu social organization. Yes, that way we are talking about. So, ethical rule of conduct applies to, not only individual, the individual moral agents, also institutions, governments we are talking about. But of course, that the very Plato said, only when there is, the ethical state, there will be ethical individuals. Right? It is that way, that you would have, we have seen in the previous video. We discussed already about it. Ladies and gentlemen, you take into account, let me take you to the next level. Yes, the Henry Sad, that Sidgwick we are talking about, it is he, this gentleman, of course, the English philosopher and author who also, that contributed to this utilitarianism school. You might be aware. He is also remembered for his, that foresight ethical theory based on utilitarianism, especially of his methods of ethics we are talking about. I have to add, three people, not only Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, and Henry Sidgwick we are talking about. He was considered by some critics as the most, the significant ethical work in English of the, that 19th century we are talking about. Of course, that you add, it's add another feather on the cap of, that utilitarianism. We are talking about the school of utilitarianism. Let me take you. Yes, the criticism. What is the criticism? Of course, the utilitarianism school attracts. If you ask me, see, how to measure happiness? Huh? What gives you happiness? That the same, that may not give me happiness. And how to measure? They're talking about, happiness calculus, that it's devised by these people, you might be aware. So, happiness is subjective. It's a non-measurable mental state. That's a criticism. How come you can measure? First of all, we don't know, are you happy or not? How come I can? It's not artificial. You say, yeah, I'm happy. First of all, that you ask anybody, how are you? Immediately they'll say, I'm fine. The greatest lie in the world. It's a reactionary statement. I'm fine. I'm fantastic. But it's not speaking, I'm not pessimistic in that nature. Even though they are not, they'll be very happy to say, I'm fine. Later, they will start listing the negativities. That's a different scenario. You're programmed to that level. Happiness is subjective. So, non-measurable mental state. It can't be measured. Subject, it's not objective, subjective. It's not free from influence. We're talking about, that's the criticism. So, utilitarianism, always talking about collectivity. The welfare of, the community, welfare of society. And what about individual? Who I am? Who will speak on behalf of this individual? So, that utilitarianism ignores also the distributional aspects of happiness. See, the happiness is not the exclusive domain of a section of population. It can be distributed. That comes the role of, the governments ultimately through welfare schemes, measures, policies, programs, to narrow down the gap between rich and poor and establish socialistic pattern, whatever may be, even the welfare nation notion or paternalistic notion, as Ashoka did those days. So, that happiness can be, it is a distributional aspect we are talking about. Happiness can be distributed. There comes, responsibility on the part of, the governments. How come you can say, that as if, that it's exclusive domain of a section of population? The role of government in ensuring that all are happy. Through welfare nation notion, yes, directive principles of state policy, you have part of the constitution. So, individual rights cannot be adequately explained by the utilitarianism. You might be aware. That is the point. You speak on behalf of collectivity. In that path, you neglect the individuals. Individual rights too. Who will take care of it? Everybody talking about society. Nobody is taking care of me. Probably this guy may worry. He's lamenting his own grievances. That in the world of suicide, even one social scientist, Emile Durkheim, would have said, that when people are preoccupied with, that collective order, the social control mechanism, that when there is a situation, lawlessness, normlessness, people are, that ultimately, that perplexed, they commit suicide. A sudden depression, whatever, maybe even given COVID situation, economic depression can be equated with that. It is that way, that may be one of the suicides, one of the causes responsible for suicide also. Altruistic suicide, egoistic suicide, of course, egoistic suicide. And also you talk about, that, what is that? Anomic suicide, state of lawlessness, normlessness. We talk about, it is that way, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe that situation, who will take care of these individuals when people are completely talking about collectivity, greater entity? Is it talking about society is more than individual or state is more than individual? It almost, that coincides with, that the Plato version of, that the anti-democratic principle, where individuals' interests are submissive to, the collective interests, where state is more than individual. Is it so? Where whole is more than its parts, sum is more than its parts, whole is more than its units. You give emphasis, premium to greatest entity, not taking into account the individual units. You might be. That's the criticism we are talking about against utilitarianism. Let me take you to the next level. Of course, the Jeremy Bentham. Of course, utilitarianism, we're talking about, that English economist and philosopher, the greatest happiness of the greatest number. This is clear-cut example, democracy. This is the foundation of morals of legislation, democratic way. Right? That the maximum happiness for maximum people. That's according to Jeremy Bentham. I'm reinforcing. This is, Jeremy Bentham. Of course, utilitarianism. This is called gross, or, the emphasis on quantity. Out of 10, if 7 to 8 people are okay, it talks about, quantity. The majority. Democracy is otherwise, the justifying the rule by majority. And there comes the responsibility on the part of the parties who won the elections. Ultimately, what is their plan? Your responsibility to take care of, minorities also. They should not feel insecure. You have to devise mechanism. That's why protective discrimination. Indian secularism is different from Western secularism. Why? Here we've got, several provisions to take care of minorities. When you say minorities as per Constitution of India, on the basis of language, on the basis of religion, you protect minorities. You allow them to run their own, the institution. But that's not happening in the Western world. The Western secularism, where all are treated equally. Anything you can speak against any religion, it's not blasphemous. But here in India, anything you speak against any religion, it's going to hurt the sentiments of or inciting communal violence. It's called blasphemous. The minorities are protected in the name of, that Indian secularism. You might be aware. Of course, secularism, when you say, it is not irreligious state, where we give reason, the importance to reason more than religion. That's why, Bombay High Courts, that the judgment over Hindutva policies, when BJP, first, that had some MPs, there came, ultimately judgment. You might be aware. Indian secularism is not, irreligious. India is not an irreligious state, but religion got reduced to the private affairs of an individual. We don't have official religion. At the same time, we protect minorities. But what happened, right? Where that we give, the importance to reason, justification, logical connectivity, scientific temperament more than religion. That is the thing. Where Constitution is supreme, people are supreme. What law says. Ladies and gentlemen, introduction to the principles of, that, especially in his contribution, introduction to the principles of moral legislation, that Jeremy Bentham, talks about this gross or his own, quantitative utilitarianism. You might be aware. So, according to, that Jeremy Bentham, all pleasures are alike. The pleasures do not have qualitative differences. Yeah, by playing, that badminton, you may get, that happiness. For some people, football, if you want to see paradise, you play, football. Swami Vivekananda said. For some people, go and ask, the chess Viswanathan. Probably he will favor chess. And, ask Sachin, Dhoni, Virat Kohli, cricket. In India, cricket is religion. Sachin is God. Dhoni is God. Virat Kohli is God. Emerging players too. The line. Everybody. Rohit, you call everybody, even Nadraj, Rohit, everybody. They're going to be future gods. Let them enjoy. So what is the point? That all pleasures are what a particular game, gives you happiness. The same, that it may not give, the happiness to me, but in spite of that, it's not measuring with the rod, the quality differences. All pleasures are alike, more or less. Okay, a game is as good as playing a game is as good as watching a cinema, a movie. Each man desires his own happiness. It can't be measured. Got the point? Now you are the authority to decide. That it is subjective. That's why. What gives you happiness? That you talk about. That so all pleasures are alike. That then once you go for it is objectively speaking. Otherwise, it becomes subjective. You might be aware. So general happiness is good for all. Whatever that ultimately. There comes ultimately choices. Whether it is entertainment, even the choosing professions, career. even choosing, a particular course of education, you got choices. Even the food items, variety, your settlement, your dress styles, everything part of the culture. So general gap in happiness is good for all. By nature, man is egoistic and selfish. This is according to Jeremy Bentham. By nature, man is, that selfish and egoistic also, that putting himself always in the forefront. It takes, that maturity to tame him, to condition him, to give primacy to the collectivity than individuality. Otherwise, that the goal you would devise in such a way that it should be, that it should not contradict the goal of the society. There comes ultimately the problem we are talking about. So man can be altruistic only, when by being altruistic, he satisfies his own desires too. That's what, that the former chief minister of Tamil Nadu, the Karma Veerar Kamaraj, you might be aware. The Kamaraj plan, you would have, that who rose to the level of, the greatest level in the Congress party, you might be aware how he was respected, by different political leaders of those days, you might be, because of his, that honesty. And he used to tell, that by showing, that other his own team ministers, the people who come here after me as chief minister should have nothing to do for Tamil Nadu. We should have done everything. We should not leave anything to be done for them. So that was his ambition. But today, even today, you see, the political leaders are very ambitious, not to do good for the society or Tamil people or Tamil Nadu, for themselves. Self-aggrandizement. The commission government we are talking about. மக்கள் நலம் என்று சொல்லுவார் தன் மக்கள் நலம் ஒன்றிலேயே தான். That they're very happy about, that meeting their own, the needs of their own people, not the society. The indulging in corruption and, that amazing wealth for their own families, not for the society. But Kamaraj took other way around. He did everything for the society. He left nothing for his family. Right? So man can be, man can be altruistic, by being altruistic, he satisfied his own desire, no doubt, because I should have done everything for the sake of society. Even I see the same setup in the case of, Prime Minister Modi ji. We should have done everything. He is on war footing mode, no doubt. But also I expect the same spirit from the team. Hope they are working towards it. That way. So moral standard, of course, nobody is free from criticism. Even Kamaraj himself was not free from criticism, you might be aware. So moral standard, of course, the greatest happiness of the greatest number of the people, not one individual. It is not satisfying only one individual. Right? It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about, so you can be altruistic only when you are altruistic. I did everything. That gives me, because I did egoism. Oh my God, that it is that way. You watch for all those unethicality, the movies like, that Wolf of Wall Street, the Hangover, everything. I did. That's okay. You talk about, all those stories, right? I'm talking about, yes, Jeremy Bentham. So, that the nature has placed mankind under the governance of, the two sovereign masters. Talk about. So this is what the statement, that utilitarianism, that where nature has placed mankind under the governance of two sovereign masters, the pain and pleasure. There is a saying in Tamil, இயற்கை தரும் இனிய அணைப்புகளை விட அடிகளை நமக்கு பெரிதும் உதவுகின்றன. We learn out of, mistakes, the pains. We never learn much in comfort when we are happy, but we learn much in pain, in failures. You understand what I'm talking about? So the pain, the greatest lesson taught by failures than by success stories. Are you aware? Listen to, the failures. But failure is the first stepping stone towards success. That's different story we are talking about. So, that is what, that, so more than comfort, the adversarial, that you talk about, adversity conditions, hostile situations, that revealing you, the difficult situations, that, but that when going gets tough gets going, that's different scenario. Only in difficult situations you learn more, not out of comfort situation. I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So nature has placed mankind under the governance of two, the pain and pleasure. Pain, you learn more. Ultimately, that you will appreciate pleasure only when you undergo pain. நிழலின் அருமை வெயிலில் தான் தெரியும். You can appreciate the hotness of the sun only when you are, that going to sit under the shadow of a tree. Then only you will appreciate the tree, and it's, that ultimately the coolness. Only when you have undergone the pain because of, the hot summer. But of course, that's the source of energy you needed that also, that you might be aware. So we are talking about the governance of, the two sovereign masters. We are tamed. We are conditioned that way. We are conditioned, we become matured by that way. And the pains, pleasures, everything. So, that Jeremy Bentham also, that divides a calculus called, that hedonic calculus, hedonism, pleasure is better than pain. The hedonic calculus, that says the different aspects of pleasures and pain, that he has devised in such a way. Hedonic calculus, the pleasures from various sources can be measured. How come you can measure pleasure? It is subjective. There comes another criticism. But in spite of that, he devised, the Jeremy Bentham devised. Of course, come back. It is not for them alone to point out what we ought to do, as well as, the determine what we shall do. This is a statement from, Jeremy Bentham. He says, that the whole humanity under the governance of two sovereign masters. You say pain and pleasures we are talking about. Let me take you to the next level. Of course, he devised hedonic calculus, the measurement. Of course, he, that ultimately devised that, 7 aspects of pleasures. Of course, you can have a code, SDC, TF squared P, I, that it's up to you. So, intensity of strength, the pleasure. Maybe, the intensity of, the strength with which, that, of course, that for that also, that I think, I can supply later. The Shakti, that the pleasure you get because of the strength, maybe, the strength with which, you win. Or the strength you enjoy among the people, or maybe material strength, whatever may be. And duration, that duration or length, the longevity part we are talking about, the very happiness, so whenever you enjoy happiness, how strong it is we are talking about. The intensity with which, you enjoy the pleasure, that counts. And also, that how the longevity, it's not ephemeral, it's not short-lived, long-lasting. That stays with you for long. It's a permanent, that otherwise, the happiness we are talking about. It's not, the lesser happiness I'm talking about, based on immaturity. But, the duration or length, the maybe the legacy you get because, that your forefathers did something, the happiness. They brought laurels to the family, you cherish for long. Of course, the intensity or strength we are talking about, of the pleasure. Of course, it's not, that very, very mild. Maybe it's not talking about, food habits, whatever maybe, even music. The intensity or strength, that decides, that it's based on that. And is it certain to happen? Is the certainty. Definitely, that it will give happiness, or, that is it certain or not? Unpredictability otherwise involved there. And that's based on that. Certainly, that you will get the happiness, that assurance we are talking about. So based on that. And also, that propinquity, otherwise, we say nearness in time. Is it likely to, will it happen now? If anybody is saying that, you prepare for civil service examination and, you'll be getting after 15 years, will you be happy? You are very certain it's going to happen, and that too within 1 year you can become all India topper. That is a nearness in time, that you're going to get your career. That is why, that you entered here. And also the fecundity, that it is a physiological capacity. It's not fertility. There is in demographic, world of demographic, there is a concept, fertility, actual birth given by women. Fecundity, physiological capacity of the women to generate more children. That lady may be capable of generating some 8 children, but she gave birth only to two children in the sense. That's fertility, it is 2, but fecundity, physiological capacity to generate children, give birth to children, maybe 8. But the same thing we apply here. Physiological capacity. You got everything. You earned everything, but you are no more. What is the use? Because, you lost your health. That is why healthy life, that demands discipline, strict workout, meditation, yogasana, suvarirundal dan sittiram. It's not one at the cost of another. It is that way we are talking about, the physiological capacity to enjoy, to generate more happiness, and also purity or freedom from pain. That how distant, that how freed you are in terms, that from the pain. It is that way, the purity of, that it's maybe 90% or 80%. Or that it's both pain and pleasure. Is it so? Is it free from the risk or challenges, byproduct, consequences? The purity of happiness or freedom from pain we are talking about. That it's not conditions attached, the strings attached we are talking about. And in what way it is going to that satisfy the extent or number of people, the size of the population. So on these grounds we are talking about the strength, duration, certainty, time, fecundity, the freedom from pain, or that the size of the people accordingly, that SDC, TF squared P I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy Bentham, we are talking about it that way. Let me take you to the next level, ladies and gentlemen. Right, what is that? John Stuart Mill, of course, that it's from gross utilitarianism to ultimately refined utilitarianism we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, that way. Yes, right, that. So, you might be aware, actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness. Wrong as they tend to produce a reverse of happiness. So, that as long as it is capable of generating, that the outcome, of course, we are talking about, the teleological approach. As long as it is promoting happiness, that it's said to be, that ultimately right. It is promoting, it's not promoting happiness, otherwise it generates only unhappiness, in the sense it's unethical. By happiness is intended pleasure and the absence of the pain. That the pleasure free from pain, the comfort, the hedonism, the ethical hedonism rather. You understand? Utilitarianism is all about, that altruistic or universalistic principle of ethical hedonism. That is what another definition we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. You see the seed of that particular definition here in his quote. John Stuart Mill. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. Yes, what is that? That when we talk about John Stuart Mill, it's not gross, it is refined or qualitative utilitarianism. This is according to John Stuart Mill, J.S. Mill. Because according to him, unhappiness is pain. Or that happens because of deprivation of, the pleasure. Something, the pleasure which is meant for you that has been deprived by someone. That's why unhappiness, that's why pain in you. It is that way. When you get pain, when you get unhappiness, unhappiness is pain. When it's because of deprivation, you are not allowed to enjoy on par with others. Maybe lack of resources, maybe exploitation, maybe by government rules and restrictions. Why not? So pleasure and freedom, and pleasure and freedom from pain are the only desirable end. Because that nobody will, prefer unhappiness or pain. Because everybody running after comfort, pleasure, otherwise freedom from pain. To live, that sophisticated life we are talking about. So they are only desirable ends. Happiness is the end, the summum bonum, as said by Aristotle. The ultimate end to be happy. Even gross national happiness index asking you, are you happy? Are you happiest nation? I told you, richest countries are not happiest countries in the world. The same way, the virtue we are talking about, it is that way, that I used to tell. Maybe some Hindi words, maybe you talk about, the virtue you're talking about. Takat, takat you say. Power means, that of course, Shakti. The virtue, you talk about. And health, this health, what do you say ultimately? Swast. And love, mahapat. You talk about, of course, honor, izzat. And that Samman, once I noted, Samman, you talk about, honor, that izzat, the wealth, Sampati, I'm Sampath in front of you, Sampati. So all those, virtue, health, love, honor, wealth, Sampati, the property, all are desired. Why, because they promote happiness, they give you happiness. People are after this. Why? Because that gives happiness, not pain. That's otherwise, that because why people are running after this. Either one way, you want to be good. Why? Because then only you are happy. You need healthy, body. Why? Then only you can, enjoy more things happily. Because that you need love, affection of others. You are comfortable. You feel secure. Because you want, that respect, honor from others, the society. You feel proud, happiness. The wealth you generate to enjoy, that gives you happiness. So you are running after all these things. Why? Because they promote happiness. This is according to John Stuart Mill. And not only that, so anything that leads to happiness is good according to John Stuart Mill we are talking about. That what are all the relevant points? Only I'm discussing, no stories at all. Because when you happen to see the previous questions, nothing to do with your drama. because sometimes they give you quote asking you to that arrive at some sort of your own opinions or meanings. I mean, that's the scenario. It's not that it's only the outcome of these thinkers enriching, otherwise the contributing to the domain of ethics we are very much concerned. We are talking about qualitative distinction among pleasures. We are talking about that. So it is not quantitative, the size, as he said, maximum number in his hedonic calculus of the Jeremy Bentham. Now the qualitative distinction among pleasures is as real as quantitative distinction, because there comes lesser happiness, greater happiness. As I said in another video, that what the happiness you get by drinking, first of all, you should not drink soft drinks. Maybe that any juice that you drink, because of that you get happiness, that can never be equated with India's independence, the freedom, that because of that the happiness you got. Can you equate with that? Otherwise you become all India topper, that ultimately you make difference in the lives of people. Ultimately you get award from the Prime Minister of India for the best civil servant award. That's no way can be compared with the very happiness you get out of drinking a juice. Lesser happiness, the quality is different. The quality of difference that ultimately we are talking about. And because of your simple signature, you change the fate of several thousand people by your measure in a particular district. That happiness can never be compared with that the happiness what you get out of watching a movie. The qualitative differences we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. Yes, the John Stuart Mill we are talking about. Intellectual pleasures are better than sensuous pleasures. The very pleasure you get by your senses, five senses, that can never be compared with intellectual pleasure. It's by body, by your brain or mind we're talking about. So ultimately, by regulating, by controlling, you practice, virtue, ethicality. Because Aristotle said, that you might be aware, both intellectualism and virtue, the combination of two ultimately gives you happiness. Otherwise, you should know how to balance your, that heart and brain. It's not yielding to the sensual pleasures, ultimately. So intellectual pleasures are better than sensual. Maybe the greater happiness, lesser happiness we are talking about. You understand the difference? It is enlightenment. Maybe it is just knowledge, information. Kaivalya, nirvana, liberation, opening up of your mind, paradigm shift we are talking about because of your that intellectual exposure, the quintessential of knowledge because of the intellectualism that can never be compared with mere facts on the other side. Or the sensual pleasure is what I'm talking about, the very happiness you get because of your senses, maybe sitting in comfortable position, AC, or eating something, whatever maybe. Socrates, that's what I said. Socrates too, with similar opinion, we spoke the combination of that intellectuals, that intellectualism, with virtue we are talking about. Even Aristotle, of course, Western moral thinkers, we spoke, we ought to seek, satisfaction of higher capacity. You are meant for higher order purpose. That your motto or goal should not become, that a mere, that a government servant. That you should become at least, that IAS, IPS officer, at least topper. Ulluvadellam uyarvullal. Got the idea? Now think big, aim high, because you are meant for higher order purpose. You are for higher capacity. Just unleash your potential. You got the boson particle. I'm keep on talking about it because small aim is crime. Be ambitious. That should also parallelly benefit humanity, the society. That's very important. We ought to seek satisfaction of higher capacity, not of lower capacity. A pilot should not ride bicycle. What do you do with what you have? Use your brain. Use your, the capacity to fullest to the core. It is not expecting, that a pilot to ride a bicycle, or, that's what I'm saying. The guys, they have become, M.Tech, that, MS, say, at least I should get government service. When they talk to me, I feel very bad. You got, allow this, that wonderful lamp in you, but you don't utilize it. What do you do with what you have? You have to understand you are for higher order purpose. So we ought to seek satisfaction, that of higher capacity. This ultimately, that this John Stuart Mill's contribution of utilitarianism, especially, that refined or qualitative utilitarianism, what we are talking about, it moves from mere egoism. It's not talking about what gives me happiness, that what gives, the happiness to the, the society, the collectivity. The maximum people. Altruism, it's a selfless, the service we are talking about. It is that way. So general happiness, good to all person, good to each person. When society is happy, each and every citizen will be happy. Even Aristotle, reinforcing that particular point, only when, that the ethical state that can ensure, ethical individuals. Yatha Raja, Tata Praja. Yatha Sanstan, Tata, the Praja. We are talking about. Only ethical, the system can ensure ethical individuals. You spoil the system, you got responsibility to that repair damage. Not by, that, the people are not ready to give you once again, that ultimately the mandate, because you damaged. You lost their trust. System is wrong. People saying, that ultimately, that the people, they gone to the extent of saying, his own justification, that how come unethical guy can preach? Huh? You don't have qualification, first of all. Na? First of all, you're not an ethical person. We know, that how long you're going to cheat people. We are talking about ultimately. So general happiness, good to all persons, good to each person we're talking about. So moral end, what is the moral end? Greatest happiness is the greatest number we are talking about. Greatest happiness is the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Otherwise, maximum happiness for maximum people. That it is that way. Greatest happiness is the greatest number. Maximum happiness for maximum people. That maximum people, the greatest happiness we are talking about. It's not a quantity, quality we are talking about. So it's because based on higher capacities. Intellectual pleasures more than sensual pleasures. That's clear-cut example. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is the right time. Let me take you to connect with that the previous questions, of course. You travel, of course, that. So because you have to understand what is the point. One of the tests of integrity is complete refusal to be compromised. We are talking about unwavering commitment towards the standards or principles we are talking about. So explain with reference to the real examples. 27 questions we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. One of the tests of integrity is complete refusal to be compromised. You might be aware the 10,000 days that that he was in prison. The Nelson Mandela, the African Gandhi you're talking about. Nothing shattered him, never compromised, never contaminated, uncompromising. The Gandhi's unwavering commitment towards ahimsa, satyagraha, that brought down the mighty empire without blood and sword. But of course, we shot him. That's different. We killed him. Such a great, that soul, ahimsa soul, was assassinated. That's the irony. One who preaches peace, that met violent means, violent end. That's irony, contradiction. The life is full of contradiction. That I used to tell all these things. That people from other states you may not be knowing. That the Kalaignar Karunanidhi from Tamil Nadu, that who rose to that the political acumen because of his oratorial skills over Tamil literature. But last 2 years, before his death, he was unable to speak. That's irony. Jayalalitha, who kept everybody under her control because of her, the boldness and dictatorship style, no doubt. But by all those guys should have been kept that way only. Tyrnekis we call. Someone, that took Chapel and gave to Jayalalitha when she left Chapel. They say loyalty, but I say, that backboneless people. But the so-called Jayalalitha, what happened in the history? The 74 days, she wasn't knowing under whose control. The so-called Sasikala, who kept Jayalalitha under custody, that what happened, right? Ultimately, she is under the custody of Parapana Agrahara. She is likely to be released. You might be knowing the story. What else you need? The lesson. What else? What lesson you need? That's what, life full of contradictions. Irony. Nothing is permanent. Came with nothing, go with nothing. Get reduced to tumbler of ash. 6 feet, that land. But, that becomes later, after a few months, somebody else. Why drama? Why drama? Ladies and gentlemen, all individual absurdities will go off. Think about people like Mahatma Gandhi or African Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. The complete refusal to be compromised. It's good to be ideal. Of course, by practical, flexible, you may survive. You can't excel. You can't travel far. How long you can cheat? The Gettikaram Pulugu, Yettu Nalu. There is a saying. You may be, that brilliant enough to cheat people, lie, only for a few days. It won't long last. We are talking about, so one of the tests of integrity, that is complete refusal to be compromised. You never compromise. Explain with reference to the real life example we are talking about. See, integrity means adopting similar standards or moral principles in similar situations across time and the interested parties we are talking about. It is not, that changing standards, double standards otherwise. The similar standards, it is a great difficulty to practice, that a similar kind of affection or love towards everyone. It is very difficult. For that, you should be detached. When Mahatma Gandhi could show his affection and love towards his own countrymen, irrespective of caste and religion and creed and wealth, everything, why can't we? The integrity means adopting. It's very difficult to practice. That demands a lot of sacrifice. Of course, nobody is free from influence, but it is very difficult. Integrity means adopting similar standards. As I told you, right, the very example when lady went with her own, son who is taking, much sweets, asking Mahatma Gandhi to advise him. Mahatma Gandhi asked the kid, that the very lady to come after 14 days. He said, come on, bacha, jada mithai mat karo. Of course, don't take much sweets. That's not good for health. That the lady got irritated, asked, why 14 days? Because Mahatma Gandhi replied, it took 14 days for me to control my temperament towards, taking more sweets. I won. Now I am qualified enough to advise. Such is the moral, that what you can't practice, how come you can preach? We're talking about. So integrity means adopting similar standards or moral principles in similar situations across the time, spatially, temporally, and interested parties. Of course, leadership is different yardsticks for different occasions, as long as it benefits the whole collectivity, where it is end justifies means. Here, that the unwavering commitment towards, that the established principles we are talking about. So in other words, that it means to be honest and consistent in thoughts, speech, and action. எவன் ஒருவனுக்கு சொல்லும் செயலும் ஒரே மாதிரியாக இருக்கிறதோ அவனை நசுக்குவதற்கு இந்த உலகத்தில் எவரும் பிறக்கவே இல்லை. That's according to Swami Vivekananda. Anybody that who speaks that the same way he acts, who preaches and practices the similar way, nobody can destroy. Nobody is born in this world to destroy him or her. It's very difficult. Even Ilayaraja, the maestro, says only two directors, maybe Maniratnam one among them, and another one Mahendran. He used to tell only those directors, what they say, they will show in terms of films. Rest of the guys, they will say one thing, they will show one thing. Even very Ilayaraja, it's not belittling other artists. I'm simply telling. How it stays in Ilayaraja's maestro's mind. He appreciated. Only two directors, that Maniratnam and Mahendran, what they say, they will show in terms of films. What they communicate while making movie, you can see in the films. That's why they are great. There are so many great people that way in day-to-day life. You might be aware. So in other words, it means to be honest and consistent in thought, action. What do you think, act, and what you speak same way. It's not double standards. So ultimately, that it is that way. They are ethical people. It is that way. Integrity is all about that, that you practice truth in the long run, honesty in the long run. You're a man of integrity, women of integrity. People develop trust in you, confidence in you. You become role model. This is, you earn trust. The confidence building measure is not very simple. It's not short lived. It takes much long time. You just imagine 10,000 days he was in prison. The very Nelson Mandela never compromised. That just visiting police station, people will change their stand. I've seen so many guys. I used to scold, some SP level guys and all, because why? As long as, that you got principle, you're not bothered about it. You got the courage. That the people are afraid now, ultimately, they will change their stand immediately by seeing, that a simple constable. Fear. Fear of authority. Why? Then you are committing mistake. As long as you're an ethical person, you need not worry about anybody. That it is that way, that principle standards we are talking about. So a man of integrity is never influenced by temptations and pressures from outside. and would only respond to the conscience, because there is a judge in you. You listen to the judge, your inner voice, your conscience. You never silence that whispering mind. Then only it leads to crisis of conscience. As long as you listen to that, you're guided by that. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. Arivu manam iva irandil manam solvadai kelungal. I'm telling in Tamil, I'll translate you. Don't worry. மனம் சொல்வதை கேளுங்கள். அறிவு எட்டாத உயரத்திற்கு கூட உங்கள் மனம் அழைத்து சென்று விடும். So when there is a conflict between heart and brain, of course, listen to the heart. The place you can't travel by brain, but you will definitely go beyond that by heart. It is that we are talking about. So integrity is, you should never get influenced by temptations and pressures from others outside, as long as you are very strong in terms of your inner voice, moral conscience, the judge in you. We are talking about that way. It is an unwavering commitment. Then only you are man of integrity or women of integrity. So of course, in the 4-step process, I'm talking about a template answer. You can, arrive at fantastic answer with fantastic examples than this, just for discussion. We're talking about, there are several materials, that in the internet you can, and several examples as I speak, you can take it upon. It is that way. So keep in mind the aim or purpose of one's action or inaction, and act consistently with that choice, even when it is, inconvenient and unprofitable. That's what, Swami Vivekananda says, ஒரு கொள்கையை எடுத்துக்கொள், அதற்காக முழுமையாக அர்ப்பணித்துக் கொண்டு பொறுமையுடன் போராடிக் கொண்டிரு, உனக்கு ஆதரவான காலம் ஒரு நாள் வரும். Take one policy. Take, that otherwise, have one particular vision or goal, and work, passionately, persistently towards that goal, towards that ambition. Of course, that no pain, you are not free from pain, hardships. There will be a day, one day, fine morning, you will definitely win. There will be a favorable day for you. Have a hope. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. That's what Swami Vivekananda. So keeping in mind the aim or purpose of one's action or inaction, and acting consistently with a choice, unwavering commitment towards that. Even when it is, inconvenience, even when there is, that adversity conditions, difficult situations, you never compromise. Your ability that takes you to the greater heights, but it's your consistency that keeps you there forever. It's your persistence that keeps you there forever. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. Of course, that in spite of the difficulties, if you don't compromise, you never compromise. Unwavering commitment. So integrity is all about that. So choosing the right course of conduct, that you got choices in front of you, the right or comfort, choose the right course of action. That, and in conformity with the moral principles, what is right for you should not be wrong for the society. There should be a congruence. You should not contradict, the morality of the society by saying this is right for me. What is right for you may be, wrong for the society. There should be a congruence while that initiating goal, fixing goal, while implementing, while speaking, in thinking. Every cell of yours, that should have been programmed or trained in such a way that you never become deviant. If you're well trained that way, that takes long time. That takes, that your involvement, your passion, and your choices, your decisions, and your unwavering commitment. Then only you become man of, that integrity or women of integrity we are talking about. So, that you never, you stay in conformity with the moral principles. You never deviate. The chastity is not lack of opportunity. So that is what integrity. Even if nobody is watching you, you never compromise the standards. That is what integrity. It is not only, when there is, CCTV surveillance mechanism, you behave pakka. No. The ethics, that is what ethics is, the subject of knowledge-based society we are talking about. You don't need monitoring mechanism, because there is a judge in you that guides you, conscience in you that guides you. You don't need enforcing agencies. Yes, you become watchful. It is that way. You don't need, courts, judges to monitor you, to pass judgment over you, to punish you, because on violation, you yourself start feeling guilty. That is what ethics, the subject of knowledge-based society we are talking about. So openly declaring one's intentions or where one stands, that your life is message to the world. That's what Mahatma Gandhi said. It's open book. You have guts to admit all your mistakes, as Mahatma Gandhi did. You're talking about. So and you know that you're very open and declaring one's intentions, or one stands, and the results of one actions we are talking about. Are you? It is not, that a suppression of fact is crime. It is not speaking only positive story. There are guys, they will suppress the fact ultimately. Huh? That's what happening. Suppression of fact is crime we are talking about. It's not you're always projecting as if you're a fantastic person. What about your negativity? Do you have guts to admit your mistakes? The moment you know that you are ready to accept your mistakes, that you grow. You are on right track. If you are not ready, it's not only misleading the society, you are misleading yourself. Finally, you will never settle, that with your mind, ultimately, who am I, where I am, what kind of person I am. You can never settle yourself. Better to openly admit and find remedy and learn out of mistakes. For that, you should be honest person, a man of integrity, women of integrity. That says, that you're a man of principles, the value system, unwavering commitment we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. And not only that, that is what clear-cut example. 1964, Nelson Mandela, he was sentenced to 27 years in prison at Robben Island. You might be aware. He accepted graciously, with dignity. And also he knew, that overthrowing apartheid, that racial segregation called for struggle and sacrifice, and was prepared for, that long walk to freedom. Sacrifice involved there. And he struck a reconciliatory note. We did not, strike a reconciliatory note with British people. We have thrown away. We sent them out. But, they lived together. Even today you see. That's reconciliatory note we are talking about. It's that way, that also demands, that magnanimity on your part, to believe your exploiter, to stay accommodative with exploiters. Oh my God, that demands. He knew, that overthrowing apartheid called for struggle and sacrifice, and was prepared for a long walk to freedom. That is the way we are talking about the passions, unwavering commitment ultimately. It is not by violent means, that you attack back, you retaliate back and send them or take away their properties. No, nothing happened. But, they prepared themselves, to be accommodative with the very exploiters. Of course, we are talking white people there. So 10,000 days in prisons, failed to break Mandela. And today you see, our politicians, that all your, the role models shattering in front of your eyes. And people, the world is changing. World is changing. Why? Because of the changing, leadership. The changing, that leadership in various spheres of life. How many of you saying, that first of all, your dad is your role model, your mom is role model? Over. Let me be leader in my own, that circle first. Later, I can think about aspiring to be a leader of, society. A guy who can't be a leader in his own community, how come he can be a leader at the societal level? But I'm not talking about, by malified means, you become leader of your community. Of course, that, all your manipulation ends one day find money. It has got karma theory, consequences. Ultimately what happened, you're broken then, ultimately. And the refuse to compromise, that on his beliefs and leave the struggle in the midway. That, so last unto death, we are talking about the same way. Last unto death, as Mahatma Gandhi did. They're talking about, that's why, that Nelson Mandela, African Gandhi, I think that's clear-cut example. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next question. Of course, that, so how to answer, that this is a template. You will be having fantastic answer then, this template, the material I've taken from, the internet, you can also do more. So the crisis of ethical values, crisis, incongruence in modern times is traced to narrow perception of, why crisis? The crisis of conscience, because, that you don't have broad perception. You don't think big. You don't feel that you're part of the bigger mission. You think for yourself. That's why it's the contradiction with the greater goal or goal of the society. It's your narrow perception. First, broaden that. Only me attitude, egoism. Amazing of wealth only for your purpose by exploitation. You develop yourself at the cost of somebody else resources. Over. How come you can be happy? The resources what you accumulated may not be long lasting. First of all, number one, legal mechanism. Another one we are talking about, of course, the penalization. Apart from that, the guilty consciousness. The people got aggrieved, that we are maybe in day-to-day common parlance. What do you say? Their curse. You talk about. Who cares? Maybe your stand. Oh, who cares? Oh, everything. The thoughts are powerful. I don't know whether you understand or not. Thoughts are powerful. Don't hurt anyone by word, by deed. Try to win over the hearts of everybody. What happens, right? But maybe by your narrow perception, only me attitude, self-aggrandizement, the egoism. But if at all, that you do something, maybe that may be contradicting the ethical values ultimately. So modern times, that's why we talk about. So the outspokenness on the part of, the POTUS, ex-president of United States of America, Trump, is very, 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 bad person to the core. He will speak this way. Trumpism. We're talking about this way, that is outspoken. That ultimately Twitter asking, the guy to, delete this tweet. Oh my God, very bad. So we are talking about, so the crisis of ethical values in modern times is traced to narrow perception, only me, egoism, that self-preservation, self-protection, not for the protection of the society, not for, that the welfare of the society. That, that is what, whenever you enunciate, that your goal, that should go with, that should, that should not contradict with societal goals. There should be congruence. Then what you can, that will go for. We are talking about, when the purpose is great, that is what I used to emphasize. When the purpose is great, even the whole universe will conspire in such a way so that you achieve that goal. And the purpose is not great or based on selfish motive, you will see, that naysayers, a lot of obstacles, that won't go far. I'm talking about. So that expects you to have, broad perception about the good life, not narrow perception, broad perception. And that demands, ethical conduct ultimately. The value system, you respect the principles or standards of the society we are talking about. Otherwise, the crisis of ethical values we are talking about, that's the outcome we are talking about. So a good life in the realization of all values, whether it is material or social, psychological, aesthetical, beauty, essence, or moral, or ethical and human, everything, a good life is possible. It's multi-dimensional. Even poverty is multidimensional. It's not mere based on economy. Access to education, access to health, access to nutritious food, and sexual imbalances, variety of things you take into account. It is that same way, a good life is possible. Only, it's a multi-dimensional aspects. It's not only one way. It's not mere roti kapada makan or bijli sadak pani. There are so many other things. You should be psychological. You should be happy by heart. You should appreciate fine beauty. You should become perfect connoisseur. You should lead good conduct. Morality. What is right. You should practice ethicality, the standards, value system you believe in, and beyond that, you become humane. It's not compromising the human in you. All human beings should be treated as end, not as means, as said by Immanuel Kant. You just recall. It's, of course, you needed materials and also your gregariousness with the society, because you are part of the society. You're not alone. Even after our death, we need 4 people to carry our body. It's not having 3,000, 5,000 members in the Facebook. It's not running after likes. Likes means exploitation. It's not generating more likes. That's what guys doing. Oh my God. Very bad. People should love you. The love, that leads to acceptance. Accepting as you are. It's not like, if you love a rose, you will water it. If you like a rose, you will plug it and exploit it. That's what. Don't like people. Love people. So we are talking about, it is that way. So a good life, that in the realization of all values, material aspect, social gregariousness, and also, that you are an average of 5 people you are in regular touch with. Who are all those? It's not in the name of gregarious, you speak with everyone, ultimately you enter into trouble. I told you already, that there are there are, that lot of unethical people in the outside. You have to be careful. Choose what suits you. It's not hating the human beings. And you got, that your own strong choices, in front of you. You can be very choosy, nothing wrong. So that saves time and energy, so that you participate in the productive activity, and also that keeps you in the right spirit, psychological, and you become perfect connoisseur. A good judgment in you. Practice good conduct. What is right you believe in. Ultimately, the standards, principles, and you become ultimately the human. So good life is a realization of all these values I'm talking about. It's not unidimensional, multidimensional, multifaceted aspects of living, and and its contributions. There should be a perfect, blend or balance or combination. That then you become a balanced personality. Huh? So that is what, when you go to yogasana or meditation, what they say, you have become grown up. But by mind, that. So in terms of thought process, you are young kid. Because when there is that's what when people lost that elections, MP election, you hear that guy feel as if he lost life. Part of the game. You have to accept magnanimous in a magnanimity. That's what even Atal Bihari Vajpayee say. Both success and defeat or failures, you have to take it magnanimously. Those words, now that party is winning. It has become single largest party. What's the part of one day fine money? He was made mockery in the parliament. He gave the statements. That's what the words of great statesmen. Today you see that particular party he belongs to. What he says became majority. The classical Indian tradition, that of course we talk about follows the realization of, the four Purusharthas, the pillars, the righteousness or dharma way, the moral conduct, the ethical conduct, the principles you stand for. With that you earn money, generate resources, ardha. Then ultimately you satisfy all your pleasures, the ethical hedonism, maybe utilitarianism we are talking about. It is that way. I think that's enough. And finally you reach moksha, kaivalya, nirvana, the enlightenment, whatever you call, free from rebirth. Jivatma joins Paramatma, or maybe salvation. It is that way. It is that way, that this is, that the Purusharthas, maybe based on. So it is that way. That's clear cut, the thing we are talking about, how to earn money, how to enjoy, how to generate resources, so that the purpose gone. So religion, wealth, sensual pleasure, and salvation, everything what we are talking about. Dharma, maybe your religion prescribed way. Every religion expecting you to be a right man, good man. But have you subscribed those views? It's not fighting for the religions. It is not entering into competition with other religions. All religions are different paths to, the same destination, same enlightenment or God. The truth is same. Manifestations are different. We spoke many times. You might be aware. So all roads are leading to Rome in Christianity. So different manifestations of the same God. It's not becoming religious and ultimately entering into religious. For a great man, religion is a tool for connecting people. For a small man, religion is a tool for dividing people or polarizing. But I want you to be a spiritual guy. You go beyond religion, where you understand we are all one and same. There is God in everybody. God is omnipresent, omnipotent. Try to respect the God in everybody, irrespective of, the diversities we are talking about. It is not nepotism, favoritism, parochialization, narrow-mindedness. It's over then. See, for the sake of loving your community, if you are going to destroy another community, the love towards your community is fake. It is very difficult to have, that the practice, similar love with all communities. If you practice, you are the greatest soul. You are the ethical personality. Unwavering commitment. Same affection. That's what we spoke. That demands, that your maturity, your passions, your strong belief in the standards or principles. Because, all human beings should be treated as, that ends, not as means. As I told you, Immanuel Kant, that it is not all human beings are ends, not as means. It is not your community people are, that great and other community people are less. That's discrimination. The partial in character. That's wrong. Unethicality gone. You can't stand, that as a tall leader. Maybe you can respect, you command respect in your own community, not by everyone. You are the polarizing figure then. It is that way. So, that we have to work towards consensus approach. So, the crisis of ethical values in modern life can be traced to, that a narrow perception. That why the crisis? Because of the narrow perception about, in terms of material values. By any means, you have to earn money. Huh? Huh? Unethicality, all round people are talking about. Whatever you do, you earn money. Will you live happily with that money? Oh my God. So Ardha and Kama, we are talking about Ardha. Focus is only on Ardha and Kama. The wealth and sensual pleasures. The Greek culture, we said, that wining and dining culture. Eat, pray, love. Eat, pray, love. No dharma. The pray I'm saying, pray for, material things, not for righteousness, not for dharma. Pray for material things, not for the good conduct. That's over then. We are talking about the narrow perception about life. We are talking about parochialization otherwise. That way, it should be, you have to think in terms of broad picture. You understand? The world as a one family. We came from the great, we came to this world for a greater purpose. The moment you understand, all your actions will get rationalized. You have to understand there are other stakeholders also. Your obligation towards, even the environmental ethics, we say stewardship. Your obligation towards other species. The planet of the earth, not only for, the very human beings. There are other species, flora, fauna, we are talking about. Sole aim of, life has become attainment of personal success. The personal success, that it is intoxicating always. You have to work for greater success. When the purpose is great, nobody can stop your achievement. Your purpose, your goal should coincide with societal goal. That's what I'm saying. When you are working for greater purpose, no need of worrying about your own career path or that the social progress I'm talking about. When the purpose is great, nobody can stop you. But when you aim for only your own success, you can't succeed in life. By helping others to succeed in life, you can easily succeed. That is the motto. Try to help others. That God is waiting there to help you. That when you try to help others, God has bestowed strength. You are capable of taking care of yourself. Definitely you would have become much stronger. You don't need anybody's support. That's the greatest attitude, mindset, to help others, to elevate others, to uplift others. But you have to choose your domain. It's not necessary, on the roadside itself you start, but you have to be choosy. And you take your time, nothing wrong in that. So, sole aim of, that all life has become attainment of personal success. That's why people fail. And that may be contradicting, that the morality on the part of the society we are talking about. So, defined in terms of acquisition of money, power, prestige, materialism. By any means, you have to reach power. Over. We are talking about, how long? As long as the institutions are sleeping. One day, fine morning, there will be guy like me, that at top of that institution, you can never commit that. Yes. Never compromising attitude. There will be people like that. I want you to be like that. My young kids watching this, I want you to be like that. Never compromising attitude, unwavering commitment. Otherwise, throw away. What is the use? Don't just survive. I want you to excel. That excellence demands a lot of sacrifices, unwavering commitment. You might be aware, whether it is family, whether it is personal life. Of course, that there are deviations. I understand, that, but definitely you can come back. The recovery will be faster. That demands your own maturity, your own self-introspection and consciousness, not from somebody else. You push yourself, push your limit. It's not someone else pushing you. That won't work. You push yourself. I'm talking about. So it is that way. So its guiding slogan is, that of course, higher the quantity of consumption, better the quality of life. Hello, this is called, that conspicuous consumption. Even, that Dr. Balaguru Swami, the ex-vice chancellor of, that Anna University, that I revere him always. A greatest person. He's a great fan of, that Dr. Kalam, you might be aware. Even his cat style. I met him once in temple, he's a great person. Of course, that he was, that UPSC interview board member also once, you might be aware. Very, very great person. And he spoke once. The quality of the person is not decided by the size of the car you travel. When I think I told this already. When all my the relatives that especially that they used to emphasize me, why don't you buy big car? He's a that he's a well-built person, and he will be traveling by Maruti 800 when he was in Anna University. All self-financing engineering colleges chairmen, they will be waiting for him, and they would have come with all top brands. Why, sir? If you say yes, immediately they'll be. But he's very comfortable. It is a living, self-contentment with little what you have. That's what greatest personality. So the quality of the person is not decided by the size of the car you travel. It's called conspicuous consumption. Thorstein Veblen says. You consume not for the consumption purpose, for showy reason. To make yourself prominent. That's called conspicuous consumerism tendency, conspicuous consumption. So higher the quantity of consumption, the better the quality of life. There is a guiding slogan. That's wrong. The great people, live with little, humble. Of course, all this, that will make you very humble. That very ethical person to the core. That so that you don't want all those. That will rationalize all of your actions. in your thought, in your deed, in your speech, everything. You don't want drama, unnecessary drama with anybody. You don't mess with anybody. You never become problem. Rather, you're always part of the solution. You simplify the complexity because you're tired of all this. That it's not always prescribing wherever you go. Only when needed, only when the door is likely to open, you knock. It's not the knocking the door when it is locked, right? That it should be suggested on demand, not if you do it voluntarily, it won't be respected. We are talking about, so therefore modern value crisis is mainly due to we are talking about narrow perception of the good life, which overplays the importance of material values they're talking about, where the predominantly materialism, that's why scams. That's why scams everywhere. What happened now? Demonetization. Why demonetization? First of all, because of the parallel economy, black money. That's why price hike. A flat not even worthy of 25 lakhs. That see inflated price 1.5 crores. The demonetization came 40% of the price down. The rationalization came. Why? Because the people with black money, unaccounted money, they keep on investing there. That whatever measures taken by RBI or that the macroeconomics or microeconomics, it's not making dent on that Indian economy. That's why reform, perform, transform, one day fine morning, your all the money you accumulated, that is not valid. That's a master stroke, surgical strike. Of course, it's not free from immediate shocks. I understand. Immediate shocks, no doubt at all. Of course. That of course that's justified on some sacrifice grounds, no other go, because illicit money, black money, ultimately financing the terrorist funding. Of course parallelly the counterfeit notes at the borders, you might be aware, the government has got its own justification. Of course my pities, I understand parallelly it's not from immediate shocks, no doubt at all. Of course, you might be aware, that there are several criticism against it. That's totally different scenario. Therefore, modern day value, that we are talking about the value crisis or crisis of conscience because of the narrow perception, because the importance on materialism than spiritualism, importance on that tangible things than on intangible things or abstract things. The abstract things, what you call honesty, integrity, transparency, compassion, sensitivity, responsibility, accountability, benevolence, equity, national interest, excellence, selfless service or altruism. That's called abstractness. But you are focused only on tangible items. What you will give me, what I will get because of that. You don't want to give anything, but you want to get everything. The getter eats better, but giver sleeps better. I want you to ask yourself, first, what's your contribution? What's your, that are you part of the production? Are you part of, contribution? But you always aspire, you want to be part of consumption. Who will produce? That way we are talking about, that is why the narrow perception, that the comfort loving people ultimately, when you've got choices in front of you, right and comfort, please, take the path of right, not comfort, because most of the best things in the world beyond the comfort zone. No pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about it because, it's that way it is in German, that downplays the other life values like, that moral and ethical. It appears like, the predominant. Of course, they are for survival mode, not for excellence mode. The time will tell. The long run, you will see what happened ultimately. Yes, the life values like, that the happiness, that's what I spoke, peace, contentment or self-satisfaction, which give, the meaning, that the worth and fullness to the human existence. Somewhere you have to, that get contentment. It's almost the balance between need and greed. As said by not doctor, as said by Mahatma Gandhi ji, the planet of the earth has all resources for us to meet one's need, not the greed. That's the thing. தூங்குறவனை எழுப்பிடலாம், தூங்குற மாதிரி நடிக்கிறவனை எழுப்பவே முடியாது. You can wake up a guy who is, that really sleeping, not the guy acting like sleeping. There are guys, that in the semi-sleep mode, perversion mode, full of materialism consciousness, parochialization. Definitely there will be crisis of consciousness. So you understand, for that, you should be open. You should show willingness, first of all, to practice these values I'm talking about. Okay, as soon as that, otherwise, what happened? The values like, happiness, peace, contentment, etc., which give the meaning, The worth and fullness of the human existence are seen as roadblocks. That this guy, our nallavaru, this guy is good guy, but useless. There is a saying, நல்லவனா இருக்கிறத விட வல்லவனா இருக்கணும். How? By adharma? By strictly violating all those, that norms of the society? How come? How long I'm talking about? How far? So it's good to be ideal, but it's not free from that a sacrifice. But definitely you will walk. If not today, the road less traveled by. You took the road less traveled by, because that it's not a herd mentality to run after materials. The road less traveled by, but it will have tremendous impact. You will travel far and long. There will be longevity. It's not by immediate gains I'm talking about. So that's why whenever you see people in the name of that immaturity, that you feel pity. You just laugh and move away. That's all I'm talking about. It's not fighting with them. Don't waste your time. When the elephant walks on the road, all dogs will be barking. That otherwise people throw stones at you, as said by Ratan Tata. That you collect them so that you can build monuments. You collect all the stones thrown at you. That all those that immature or unethical people, because they are for survival, but you are for excellence. That demands passion and sacrifice in you. You collect those stones. One day, fine morning, we can build monument, a great monument. That's a legacy you are going to leave to the people. They will cherish by the time you are no more. By the time it is that way. Who cares? But the very contentment, as long as you are virtuous, the contentment, what you get, nothing can be equated with that. We are talking about it that way. So roadblocks and unnecessary diversions from the high road to material, they got the point of from the high road to material success. They will create a lot of, obstacles in your path. For that, they've got a team. Because, that, that you might be. The greatest spirit always, encountered the violent opposition from mediocre minds. You are aware of that. The greatest intellectual, the greatest spirit, will always encounter, no doubt, a violent, that opposition from mediocre minds, not minds. There will be majority against, this minority people I'm talking about. It's not in religious sense, language sense. I'm talking about spiritual sense. Because that the herd mentality versus that the greatest that the people, spiritual people, want to transform society, who are part of the solution also, who are ethical people, never compromise, unwavering commitment. So these guys, what will happen? The majority, they will create that some sort of obstacles in their path, but in spite of that, they will win. Only time will tell, that it is immaturity on these guys' part. One day, fine morning, they fail when they are brought to the book, when they are no more, when the accumulated wealth, ultimately, that ultimately stolen in front of their eyes. Are you aware? There are guys, that stashed away money from India to, that all those, that the Scandinavian countries, the Liechtenstein, all, Swiss bank, it might be. Some people forgot the password. Are you aware of it? Some people used intermediate. Those guys are no more. They lost the money. You cheated here, but there are another person, there are other people waiting there out, that to cheat you. It's a cyclic, that a reaction we are talking about. The chain reaction, domino effect, it will be there. Yes, that's a rule. That's a principle we are talking about. Since a narrow way of the good life, that narrow way of good life cannot sustain in the long run, because it's on survival mode, not excellence mode. There may be robust establishments, that whatever may be, it appears big. One day, fine morning, everything will be shattered, dilapidated. You're going to witness. Otherwise, that everything will be there, you can't be happy. What is the use then? What is the use then? The guilty consciousness. Otherwise, you may not be healthy. What is the use then? I'm not cursing. That's reality. That's reality. You can't escape from the karma theory, the consequences. So, since a narrow, that is why have a broader vision. Everything, that is share and care we are talking about. A narrow of, the good life cannot sustain, in the long run. There is a need for society in general to focus more on broader aspect of the values to lead better quality of life. Broader aspects of the life, take into account, the ethical path. The basic human values, truth, responsibility, love, justice, peace. As I said, SI, OA, OH, Nolan committee recommendations, everything, you might be, there comes, your thinkers, your saints, your gurus, your literature guiding you. Are you ready to listen? Are you sensitive enough to understand and practice? That's very important. Nothing, that is short of the, that everything is available, everything in the air. You show sensitivity, when the student is ready, teacher is already ready. When you want to learn, when you want to transform, everything falls in your place. We are talking about, that there comes several questions we are talking about. Of course, four goals of life, that of course to reach, kaivalya, liberation, enlightenment. Of course, that we are talking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Other, the secondary goals, the priority goals to get enlightenment, to lead a greater life. The purpose is great. All these are means to the end we are talking about. The moksha or enlightenment, kaivalya, nirvana, whatever may be the religion. Dharma, artha, kama, that it should be dharma based way. Mobilizing of resources or enjoying your pleasures. That's called ethical hedonism. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way I took you. Of course, that a man, that I think it is right time. Let me take you to the next question, right? If you got any doubts parallelly, you can type your questions, ladies and gentlemen. 1 second, please. You can also parallelly refresh yourself, please. A man is the product of his thoughts. I told you already. உள்ளத்தனையது உலரும் உயர்வு வெள்ளத்தனையது மலர் நீட்டம் வெள்ளத்தனையது மலர் நீட்டம் மாந்தர்தம் உள்ளத்தனையது உயர்வு. There is a Tirukkural like that. Let me translate you, don't worry. I already told other examples also. That the lotus flower, its height, that is completely based on the level of the water in a pond. You might be aware. A temple tank or pond, you would have witnessed. The height, that of course, that as long as that the level of the water deciding the height of the that the very lotus flower, you might be aware, the stems accordingly. The same way, that the greater heights, what you reach is completely based on what is here, what is inside there. Your conscience, that your inner voice, you are guided by that, your thought process, your mindset. All is well. Is it all is well? I'm talking about. Is it healthy? Is it happy? So a man is, but byproduct of, otherwise, product of his thought. Because, that you think as you become. That you think as you become. You become as you think, otherwise. That's Swami Vivekananda. We are talking about, that this is all different interpretations for the quotes of Mahatma Gandhi. I'm talking about, this is how you are going to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, because, it's the quote-based questions always, expecting you to understand and give, parallel accounts or meanings or your interpretations. That's what, by practical examples. They're talking about that way. So, a man is a product of his thought. What he thinks, that he becomes. Mahatma Gandhi says, even Swami Vivekananda says. I said, Tirukkural. வெள்ளத்தனையது மலர் நீட்டம் மாந்தர்தம் உள்ளத்தனையது. There is another saying, எண்ணம் போல் வாழ்வு. That's the greatest statement. Your thoughts, decides your life. Your attitude decides your altitude. Everything one and the same we are talking about. When character goes, everything goes. The character, the greatest soul, the character decides, that accordingly. That's what I'm saying. It's your ability that takes you to the greater heights, but it's your character, your attitude, it's your emotional intelligence, it's your persistence or consistency, it's your value system, it's your ethics that keeps you there forever. We're talking about this. Otherwise, you may lose some people in your path. Don't worry. Don't beg for relationship. They are not meant for you. Right things will stay. You don't beg for relationship. It's not, that running after anybody. Right things will stay. That's what I'm talking about. That so that is what the longevity of relationships will come. That you attract, similar kind of people. As long as you are with positivity, you will get only positivity. The negative people will attract only negativity. I'm talking about. So don't worry. That it is இழப்பதற்கு ஒன்றுமில்லை பெறுவதற்கு ஒன்றுமில்லை. We are talking about it is that way. Our people used to say it is that way. We are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go to the next level. Yes, the actions of a person is largely determined by his or her thought process. Because I gave you already formula. Thoughts leading to action. Action in the long run, ultimately becomes your habit. The habit in the long run, ultimately what happens, right? Your character. Character becomes part and parcel of your personality. I'm talking about this, the personality, what you're talking about, reflection of the culture, you belong to. Yes. So, the thought leading to action, that is what in Tamil say, எண்ணம் செயலாய் செயல், the பழக்கமாய், பழக்கம் குணநலனாய், குணநலனே ஆளுமையாய், அந்த ஆளுமை, the பண்பாடு or கலாச்சாரம், I don't know exact translation, you can come to know, reflection of the culture we're talking about. So actions of a person, that largely determined by his or her thought process. Thought leads to action. The thought, that the very thought what you get, byproduct of your culture, the byproduct of your socializing. So one's thoughts, that are the first engagement of points, that in society. Actually, the very Stephen Covey, in his book, that 7 steps of highly effective people, he says, every product is made twice. One, you conceive in your mind, later in real life. That talks about role of planning. Every product is conceived twice. One in your thought, another one in reality. You understand? It is that way, that here itself you've got, that problems, you have to troubleshoot. So without proper contemplation, without, if we fail to plan, we plan for our failure. There is no process, no product. The moment you plan, you will think about process. You will think about technology. You will think about infrastructure. You will think about, staffing. You will think about, funding. You will think about marketing, whatever may be. It is that way. The process decides, ensures the product ultimately. So the thought process, the first engagement of points with the society we are talking about. You think. Even the society is in your thinking. That constrains you. Exercise constraints in you. What to speak, what not to speak. How to behave in a particular occasion. How to build a community. What is the very purpose? The way with which what we speak should bring people together. We are a bridge, a connecting bond. Not dividing people, not polarizing people. That is not our purpose. We play the role of connector by enlightening people, by making them understand the ground reality, by guiding them perfectly, because we understood. Those people know, they do. Those people understand, they teach. We understood, we teach. Maybe may the Almighty God, that bless us more, to understand more, to teach more, to guide more. That's different scenario. Let's be, that ever-learning student for that particular sake. We are very happy. Yes, thoughts impact behavior as well as attitude. It's not only affecting your immediate behavior, right? The habit, and also attitude, the character you arrive at. That influences. That is why people say your attitude decides your altitude. We're talking about nothing wrong. Sometimes, that you feel low. So what? Every day is not same day. You don't, that it is not, that something gone wrong in one particular page of a book doesn't mean entire book is bad. There are several chapters. And don't judge a book by its cover. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. So attitude decides your altitude. So the impact of thought not only on behavior, also, that in ensuring right character. Attitude we are talking about, because ultimately that decides your that altitude in the society. Otherwise, that while molding actions, you have to take in mind the improper role of socialization or brought in, where you internalize the value systems accordingly. You are taught in such a way, institutionalized by various agents of socialization, maybe parents, teachers, educational institutions, your celluloid world, your community, your neighborhood, your relatives, your peer groups, your friends. We're talking about, so it therefore becomes very important for thoughts to be fixated to a compass of morality and conscience. That your inner voice should guide you. All your thoughts should be guided and monitored by this. There is a judge in you. Listen to that judge. Don't ignore that voice. Let me recall, according to Swami Vivekananda, when there is a conflict between brain and heart, listen to heart. Inga enna solludu? Jersey nu solluda? That movie dialogue I'm talking. What it says, all is well, all is well. It becomes very important for the thoughts to be fixated to the compass of morality and conscience we are talking about. Once you are guided by, you need not worry about anything in life. That you will always lead good and happiness. You will be a role model. The moment you ignore, the extent to which you face trouble, the crisis in the. That's clear-cut path we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you, that ethical behavior and regulation of actions emerge from ethical thought process we are talking about. So it's by ethical behavior and regulation of actions, that and thought leading to action, action and the behavior. That's ultimately, that everything, that thought to action, action to behavior. It's that way. You understood this, that line of thinking. Of course, thought, action, habits, character, personality, part of culture. You know it. That's a continuum, that you talk about, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, thoughts are reflections on experiences, that open up the possibilities for choices of action to be taken. That opens up, that so your thought, that is what, where there is will, there is a way. When your thought is great, when your purpose is great, the whole universe waiting for you. The whole universe is waiting there for you to support. Everything falls in place. You will find right, that it is not likely minded people. I don't want likely minded people. You want right minded people, ethical people. Very dangerous. Like minded people we don't want. Right minded people. Everything falls in place. You will attract, the similar energy I'm talking about. They will stay with you forever. I'm talking about. So thoughts are reflections on experiences open. Ultimately that will open up the variety of possibilities I'm talking about. For choices, that are action to be taken. You will get multiple choices. You can be choosy. Choose what suits you. We're talking about. So an understanding and awareness of, one's thoughts and feelings or emotional intelligence. We're talking about, that. So there should be a clear understanding who you are, who am I. The first step of the wisdom, according to Aristotle, the first step of the wisdom is to understand who you are. First, understand yourself. That you can try to understand everybody. Do you know who you are first? Have you listened to your heart? I'm fighting. I'm struggling. I understood who am I. I'm fighting. But the very world demands different. You do everything. And you have to project, some investments, some buildings, that thing, this thing, by false title, everything. I don't want. I understood who I am. That I'm not that attracted by those. I want real life. I don't want fake life. Do you love, that real life or fake life? Come on, question yourself. Eh? I've seen a lot of leaders, who live fake life. They have shattered in front of my eyes. You are the best judge in you. You are the leader in you. There is a God in you. You are the God. You are the ultimate. And also parallelly respect, there is a God in others also. God is omnipresent, omnipotent we are talking about. So an understanding and awareness of, that what happened, know yourself first. That's the first step of wisdom we are talking about. So you will understand how the thoughts are. People talk about. But of course, you have to allow the thoughts for some time. Let it settle. It's not stopping the thought. An idea should not die in the beginning. You should allow the ideas to flow. Let it flow. You commit mistakes. You correct. Life is all about evolving. Day by day you evolve. புதிதாக பிறந்தோம், புதிதாக பிறந்தோம். Every day you are born afresh. I understand. Whenever we commit, that mistakes, we die. Otherwise, we are born fresh. Of course, that without mistakes, only by mistakes you learn. You err is human being, not only committing, that it's not lifelong, that committing errors I'm talking about. What you learn out of it, that's very important we are talking about. So, emotional intelligence, we are talking about how to handle the emotion. Of course, John Mayer, Peter Salovey, that we spoke, that Daniel Goleman, we spoke. Ability model, the domain model. How to handle your own emotions so that, once you are stable, you are capable of handling the emotions of others. That demands, stability, balance in you. For that, you should be well trained in terms of your thought, in terms of deed, in terms of speech. Nobody can shake you. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can destroy you emotionally. You feel composed so that you understand the emotions of others and it's not reacting and responding accordingly. The problems are same, but reactions are different. We are talking about we don't want your reaction, rather we want your response, right kind of response in a particular occasion, the situation we are talking about. It's not the problem, it is how do we respond to the problem. Don't react. The response is the appropriate, the solution and permanent solution we are talking about. So understanding, that and awareness of, that you first understand what's your thought, because, thoughts going to decide your character. Thoughts going to decide your actions, your habit, your character. That your character is otherwise called, that your attitude. That's going to decide your altitude. That's going to decide what kind of personality you are. Alumni. or emotional intelligence, that can help in regulating, that her actions, that demands, it's not your IQ. The ethics is all about, we don't want your mere IQ. We want your EQ. Ethics is all about moving from IQ to EQ. What is that? Emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. At the end of the day, we are human beings. That's what conflict between heart and, that the brain. Listen to the heart. Even Aristotle says, what is the use of educating yourself without giving satisfaction to the heart? Intuition. We are talking about what it says. Don't silence your inner voice. That's what most of the inventions and discoveries, greatest achievements in the world, outcome of that, that inner. The people listen their inner voice because of that. Are you aware? Even the Apollo 11 mission, what we are talking about, of course, the first lunar mission, you might be aware. Neil Armstrong, Edwin Collins, Michael, Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin, we are talking about the three people, you might be aware. People say Neil Armstrong. First, the man who touched, because, first guy hesitated, second man touched. The history is nothing but history of hesitation. That came, call to another guy. What happened, right? That the scientists, hesitated. It's a new place. If you put our leg, maybe the gravity difference, we may be eaten away, we may die. That guy hesitated. There came, the call from, that another call from, NASA. Come on, Neil Armstrong. That guy, without hesitation, immediately jumped into. That became history. The history is nothing but history of hesitation. Right? It's that way. When it is right, don't hesitate. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. That all these things what we are talking about, that. So what happened? The very Apollo 11 mission, that how the byproduct you are talking about. But there are controversy also. It's manipulated drama, like, I don't know. That's different argument. But how this Apollo 11 mission came to, that there was a guy, one who wrote, that a poem from Earth to Moon. Somewhere this, scientists got inspiration from there. One man's, that poem became source of inspiration to the scientific community. Now achievement. And today, Elon Musk, we are talking about space tourism. There will be interplanetary, transportation. We can also settle on other planets. So a lot of possibilities we are talking about. Where it came? It's because of one man's poem. What is that poem? From Earth to Moon. That space to Moon, especially. Vinnilirundu nilavukku. The line speaks. I read in my +2. Apollo 11 mission about that. What is that? So someone else, the intuition, the passion, that became, that ultimately achievement we are talking about. The very, that intuition got translated into achievement by maybe another team. But that demands time, no doubt at all. But somewhere you have to begin. You begin with what you have. Not waiting for right time. Begin with what you have. Once you start, showing results, people will come and join you. People will start appreciating you. They will be proud to be, that part of your team then. It's not waiting for good team, waiting for good people, waiting for time, waiting for materials. That start with what you have immediately, whatever may be. Your preparation, I'm saying. Don't wait for, that right book, right material, right kind of stuff, right person. Come on, you begin somewhere. Somewhere you have to begin. You begin first. Even 1,000 miles of journey begins with your first step. Your first step, not somebody else's first step. You are the pioneer, everything. You are the beginner of everything. The history begins with you. Ladies and gentlemen, you can rewrite history by right kind of, that attitude I'm talking about. Because, well, the question is all about your attitude decides your altitude. Your thought process ultimately deciding the outcome. You become as you think. Yes, it is that way. That, of course, Ennambol Valvu, Vellathanaidu Malarnittam, Vandardam Ullathanaidu Uyarvu, maybe Tirukural, you take asylum. And for example, while thousands of, the very talking about, thoughts of kindness and compassion can create more empathetic individuals. Thoughts of violence and anger can contribute to the making of criminals. Two different paths I'm talking about. So by, benevolent path, kindness, be kind to every kind, not only mankind. The compassion. All human beings should be treated as ends, not as means. So ultimately, you create, empathetic morality, ethicality. But the thoughts of violence, kill him. You become angry. But that Raudharam Palagu, you have to sometimes show right kind of, that emotions. That's different story. But it's not always. The violence, that people who believe in violence, they can never get solution. Kathiya thookanavanuku kathiyila da saavu. It is that way. That the different paths, different destination. That's why communist people never get solution. The Gandhi believed in ahimsa. Of course, he got assassinated. That's different story. But his idea won. He gave freedom. The very purpose for which he was sacrificing the whole life. Ultimately, that became success. He lost himself to that tool, the weapon, violence. Can compromise anything for the sake of truth. You never compromise truth for the sake of anything. That statement of Mahatma Gandhi. He stood for truth ultimate, ahimsa, the non-violence. These are all ramifications, the manifestations of the truth. For him, truth is religion. You might be aware we are talking about. So technological advancements, that like artificial intelligence, big data, they invoke new questions around ethics. The present day, we are talking about cyber crimes. We are talking about data manipulation through Cambridge Analytica. Even that Mark Zuckerberg was questioned by the Supreme Court of USA and Malaysia. You might be Singapore courts. You might be aware. But technology is the solution. Technology itself, that should not indulge in cyber snooping, and also, that where you are treated as a commodity, the data in the big data world, the manipulation of the data that violates, privacy of individuals as well as nations. We are talking about. Yes. Individuals thinking, that has become more self-centered. That's what, that parochial, narrow-minded, under the impact of increasing individualism. That you misconstrued, in the name of, the economic development, individualism, privacy, ultimately you misled yourself. That is what the point, the difference between Eastern value system and Western value system. I'm not promoting any ism. The conflict of value systems I'm talking about. The Western, that value system is all about materialism, consumerism, individualism. More self-centered, privacy. But whereas Eastern value system, is all about spiritualism, collectivism. With less material, these people are happy. Even the very Bhutan, Thimphu, a tiny country, that ultimately a topper in global, that happiness index. Even Iceland nation, not the richest countries. The richest countries are not happiest countries in the world. Why? Because the double standards, exploitation, colonization, unethicality to the core. Because you enter into war saying that you are going to buy peace. How? Only peace pieces. You enter into war saying that you are going to establish peace. That never happens. Because you defeat people. You're not winning the hearts of everybody. So why? The parochialization, only me attitude, self-aggrandizement, amazing of wealth, by exploitation, by any means. You're ready to float all those norms, the principles or standards of society. Of course, even consumerism. And this further led to the individual's detachment from the community and society we are talking about. Ultimately, that people who do all those, parochial, narrow, they will be isolated. They have to, that run the life in an isolated manner, right? That will happen. They can't connect because, you go against. You don't see life in broader picture, rather parochialization, narrow-mindedness, that later you will be isolated. People, once they are aware of it, ultimately what will happen? You will be isolated. That's what will happen. So there has also been an increased desire from the market and the state for the control over people's thoughts and behavior. Yeah, through advertisements. Yeah, that's what people say. I don't know whether it is there or not, the Illuminati concept or corporate machination. One single brand has got, one single corporate has got more than 90 brands, and whose budget can be, that more than, several, the developing countries or several developed countries. Are you aware of it? And through that R&D, they decide, that what you should wear, what you should eat, what you should appreciate, what you should say, what is right. Are you not manipulative? Even in the world of, internet revolution, that once you are what you watch. What you watch, for that immediately you get suggestion. Sponsored. Algorithm works that way. The big data. That the structural flow, it is understood by the algorithm. Ultimately, that you are shown. They decide what you should wear, what you should appreciate, what you should eat. So the consumerism behavior is influenced by the R&D of, the corporates. You might be aware, the very advertisement, what we are talking about, hammam means honesty. What is the role of, honesty in hammam? They try to, link with honesty with hammam, so that that stays, that, giving, abstract, that item, linking with concrete item. That is how, they want to rule you. They want to contaminate you. They want to stay with you. so that that never goes out of mind. This is what happening in the world. For that, they've got R&D. Big think tanks, working for, so that, that it promotes consumerism, so that, all developing countries, underdeveloped countries, becoming dumping yard for the finished goods of, someone else R&D for the corporate. The name of globalization, all these guys are, promoted. All, that international institutions promoting their interests. Go against that, that everything goes off. That's what we have to balance. We are talking about, this and all, we are talking about parallelly at the global scenario. So, that there comes, that the promotion, the market ultimately, even the agriculture sector, are we leaving, that open our small and marginal farmers towards market forces? By inviting, that investments, on the one hand, government talking about, going for economic reforms, liberalization of agriculture sector. On the other hand, in what way we are protecting, the small and marginal farmers by ensuring by legislation even that, we won't dismantle. The governments, that the priority is to work in favor of reforms. On the other hand, parallelly, there should be a balance. There should be a consensual approach. They're struggling by announcing a lot of measures, by going for, that interlocution, discussion. We're talking about, a lot of efforts taken in that direction. You talk about, so increased desire from the market and state to control over people's thoughts and behavior. It's manipulation of people's thoughts, behavior, action. That's what's happening at the global level for a particular ideology, for a particular, the product and its usage. Your conditions in such a way. We are talking about all these things, that of course, ladies and gentlemen, and not only that, this is not only the violation of person's right to speech, speak or expression, but also reduces individuals' tendency to question and to think critically. You are manipulated, you are brainwashed, you are contaminated, you never question the authority because you have been culturally conditioned. That's what, that the conflict school of thought says, a guy who is properly, that a submissive to the cultural system of the society at the family level, he has become so obedient, that not practicing scientific temperament, ultimately completely fitting with the family system, he will never question the authority in the state. Because you have been conditioned the family itself, like family, like society. That may be, that the conflict school of thought opinion. Maybe you are already exploited by the family, you are ready for exploitation of the society or state or market force. Only domain differs. The area get widens. That's according to conflict school of thought. That goes with this. So this is not only the violation of where all-round human rights violation we are talking about. So the person's right to speech and expression, but also reduces individual tendency. You never question because there is no scientific temperament because you believe because you're completely shrouded by faith and belief system. You never question the authority. You never question the system. Because for that you got, that you're a good person, obedient. What is obedience? Commitment to the value system, that or conformity to the value system is different from, that obedient to the authority or that the conditioning or, that brainwashing I'm talking about. That's totally different. Question everything. Why? Why not? $1 billion question. Unless understand, you for that you have to go for introspection. It's not carrying forward somebody else's opinion, I say parallelly. You question everything. Don't get misled. As long as you get, cheated, there will be people there to cheat you. ஏமாறுபவர்கள் இருக்கும் வரையில் ஏமாற்றுபவர்கள் இருப்பார். As long as you get cheated, there will be people there to cheat you. Of course, it is in these times, that people's ability to think freely in a society should be nurtured. This is in the crisis situation, that you should stand on your own. That demands, right kind of education, value-based education. You never compromise, unwavering commitment towards value system. It's not based on parochialization. Rather, you think in broad picture. You question everything then. It is that way. So, societies need to emphasize more on education, that as inculcation of the critical ethical thinking. It's questioning everything. You experience. Religion is all about that. Every religion expects you to undergo, that experience, self-experience. You undergo experience, then you realize. Don't carry forward somebody else. It is that way, that introspection, go for introspection and can produce individuals who act ethically, that thereby impacting society. They become role models, that a nation and at the world large, that people like. That begins with righteousness in your heart. Of course, let me recall once again, that where there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. When there is, that order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. You understand? That begins with righteousness, the thought process, righteousness, dharma of an individual leads to peace in the world, as said by Dr. Kalam. We're talking about that way. So that demands value-based education that makes you to stand on your own. Ethical, the way that you conduct yourself, you are always happy. You are never, that disturbed by anything happening in the society because you are happy. The virtue on the part of yours, that ensures happiness. We are talking about that way. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that it is right time. I took much of your time. You understood properly, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, today we took into account that utilitarianism. Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. We discussed that utilitarianism, gross utilitarianism, or quantitative utilitarianism, and whereas John Stuart Mill, refined utilitarianism, or that you might be aware, qualitative utilitarianism. We spoke at length about. You might be aware. The utilitarianism is all about maximum happiness for maximum people. It is universal example of that ethical hedonism. Otherwise, you talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, we spoke at length. Hope you got, and also we linked with that the previous year questions and its solutions. You would have benefited more, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also download that the very material, and also you might be aware you can refer for basic information lexicon, and also that the books I've enlisted here. That P.N. Roy Chowdhury and Subbarao, and then go for ethics and public administration, maybe Ramesh Arora, and second administrative reform committee report, especially the fourth report, 10th report, 11th report. Probably you will understand more. Ladies and gentlemen, it is right time. And not only that, contributions from different thinkers, different religious people, different philosophers, that thinkers throughout the world, social scientists especially. In that path, we are discussing some more people to be discussed. So that will enrich your, the ethical understanding, the domain of, that ethical subject, which is said to be, that the subject of, that knowledge-based industrial society, where you don't need monitoring mechanism because there is a judge in you. You are guided by that. When there is a conflict between heart and brain, you are guided by heart. That's according to Swami Vivekananda. Even Aristotle reinforcing that, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, there will be crisis of conscience. Don't silence your inner voice. That's a message of, that the otherwise, that by all these thinkers, ladies and gentlemen. I think, that I appreciate you once again, that welcoming you once again for the participation of this wonderful session, that wouldn't have been possible without your support. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, the passions you have shown in learning, I appreciate that. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail that maximum 10% discount. Please go for Iconic program. Ladies and gentlemen, I talk about Iconic program, you benefit more. Appreciating you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's meet tomorrow, same time, with another topic. Till then, it's that bye-bye. That this is Success Sampath signing off from you. Of course, thank you so much, and good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Yes.